Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. The people of the Motherland are coming. Fortunately, I am Superman of Doomsday. Chapter 81. While trapped in hell forever, clear heaven at the same time. When the PIM particles were exhausted, the artificial intelligence Yaimong directly abandoned White Vision's mechanical body and broke in along the detected network. This choice is obviously extremely correct, and it may completely stay in the quantum realm space in the next second. Yaimong seemed to turn into a ray of virtual current, leading along the network message line, entering the electronic terminal that sent the message, and instantly completed the intrusion control. The next moment, Yaimong, who was isolated from the world a moment ago, only felt a bright light in front of her eyes. Through the commercial camera of the network system, what appeared in her conscious mind was a bustling pedestrian street with colorful lights. The modern western streets are full of traffic, and the skyscrapers stand like steel trees against the blue sky. Is this Times Square, New York? It's almost the same as the preset location of his travel through time and space. The artificial intelligence Yaimong calmed down a bit, and continued to check the time through the connected network. The world time here is 2014, July 25, 6 p.m. The artificial intelligence Yaimong's thinking flowed extremely quickly. This time was 10 years before the previous Marvel universe, but it was still a year later than the time he had preset. Before that, Yaimong had naturally considered the time for the shuttle back. Looking at the timeline of the Marvel Universe movies comprehensively, the Mind Stone originally appeared in the form of a mind staff that can manipulate the consciousness of others. In the Avengers 1 movie, the timeline is 2012. The evil god Loki obtained the psychic staff bestowed by Thanos, and led the alien mechanical fleet to invade New York City, trying to occupy and control the entire Marvel Earth. That was also the original assembly of the Avengers, making their world debut and saving the world for the first time as a team of heroes. Later, the evil god Loki was subdued, and the spiritual staff was obtained by the Avengers. As a result, it was handed over to the Shield. When the Mind Stone appeared again, it was already the Avengers 2 movie. The Avengers regained the Mind Staff and accidentally created Ultron. Ultron's betrayal took away the Staff of the Mind, and obtained vibrating gold materials, and tried to create a perfect body through the technology of regenerating the cradle. That's where superhero Vision comes in. Later, the Mind Gem was always on the forehead of the Phantom until it was taken away by the Infinity Gauntlet Thanos, who came to the Earth in the movie, Avengers 3. Therefore, if you want to easily get the complete Soul Gem, it is undoubtedly Avengers 1 and Avengers 2, that is, from 2012 to 2014. Yaimong did not choose to travel through the timeline of Avengers 1. That's because they were worried about colliding with the Avengers team from other future universes and time and space. After all, they chose to go back to 2012 and borrow the Mind Stone, which is still the Mind Staff, from the evil god Loki. He doesn't need to step into this muddy water, he just needs to choose the timeline that will be ordered later, that is, after the future US team returns the infinite gems. Therefore, Yaimong finally chose to travel to 2013, which was also the blank plot transition period from Avengers 1 to Avengers 2. The problem is that there was a deviation when traveling through the quantum realm, which made Yaimong about a year late, and finally arrived in 2014. Oops, isn't the plot of Avengers 2 already over? The artificial intelligence Yaimong's thinking froze. If Avengers 2 has already happened, then the Soul Stone will die on Vision's head. And as the nemesis of artificial intelligence, Vision is not his turn to fight for it. And after Vision, it was time to compete for gems with the purple potato-faced Thanos, and the difficulty continued to increase. No way. Yaimong suddenly became anxious. It was rare to travel back to the Marvel time and space in the dream, wouldn't she miss it? Immediately, the artificial intelligence Yaimong hurriedly searched for information about the Avengers through the current network. Soon, a lot of news and information flooded into his consciousness densely. Among them, a piece of news caught Yaimong's attention. The night before yesterday, there was an explosion on the top of the Avengers headquarters building. There were rumors that the high-level AI robot under the name of Stark Industries had defected. The artificial intelligence Yaimong went down for a while. Ultron defected the night before. This is the beginning of the plot of Avengers 2. It's been 2 days, so you won't really miss the chance to get the complete Mind Gem. The artificial intelligence Yaimong kept calm and continued to browse through all the recent relevant news and videos with absolute reason. Yesterday at noon, the South African port abandoned the dock, and the Avengers and the defected robot were fighting on an abandoned ship. Yesterday afternoon, the Hulk went berserk in a port city in South Africa, and was stopped by Iron Man with his anti-Hulk armor. At noon today, the Avengers appeared in Seoul, South Korea, causing a serious local traffic accident. The last one is the latest news reports that can be searched so far. A few hours ago, why did the Avengers appear in Seoul, South Korea? Yi Meng quickly reviewed the details of the Avengers 2 movie in her mind. That's right, Ultron first obtained the vibrating gold material lost in the country of Wakanda in the port of South Africa, and then went to Seoul, South Korea, using the regenerative cradle technology mastered by the local research institute to try to create a vibrating gold body. The Avengers arrived in Seoul in time and snatched the embryonic body of the cradle of regeneration from Ultron. According to the direction of the plot, next. The artificial intelligence Yaimong paused for a moment, then frantically followed the network signal and rushed towards the Avengers building. Whether you can get the complete Mind Stone, only the last chance is left. At this time, the Avengers building in New York City. As night fell, the building was near the top floor of the laboratory. A gentleman with a beard and a man of science and engineering wearing black-rimmed glasses are looking down at a closed experimental cabin. Through the tempered glass hatch of the experimental cabin, one can see that there is a metal body that is about to be formed inside. There is a yellow gem inlaid on the forehead of the metal human body, with it as the center. Wisps of light combine the metal and the cells into one, perfect. Iron Man Tony Stark touched his chin, and commented jokingly and earnestly, as expected of my son Ultron, he actually wanted to build such a body, using the gemstone of the spiritual staff as the wisdom energy storage, and coupled with the regenerative cradle technology of the perfect combination of vibrating golden cells. Okay, Tony, your son is still making trouble outside. Dr. Banner said something angrily, and then said in a deep voice, let's destroy this cradle of regeneration now. In this way, even if the artificial intelligence Ultron comes to the door, it will not succeed. Tony Stark stared at the cradle of regeneration, silent. Dr. Banner frowned, looked at him and said in a deep voice, Tony, don't you want to do something again? Tony Stark didn't hide from him, and directly gestured to the storage disk in his hand, with wisdom and determination in his eyes. I want to upload Jarvis's low-level program and let him be a powerful helper for us in the future. Dr. Banner was stunned. Ultron is a lesson learned from the past, aren't you afraid to create monsters again? I believe in my decision, and please trust me again, Tony Stark said solemnly. Dr. Banner hesitated, his eyes fell on the regeneration cradle, and he was shaken suddenly when he saw the most perfect vibrating gold embryo body that technology could produce. It is indeed a pity to destroy it like this. As long as you are a scientist, there is no one who will not be shaken by this. Okay, I'll listen to you and upload Jarvis program. Dr. Banner reluctantly agreed. Tony Stark laughed immediately, and the two immediately took action, uploading the artificial intelligence Jarvis program to the regeneration cradle. Uploading started, there are 3 minutes left. Dr. Banner cooperated with the completion of the previous steps, wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, even he doesn't know if this is right or wrong, and what kind of special existence it will create. But at this time, a silver afterimage flashed into the laboratory here, circled around the experimental cabin of the regeneration cradle at an extreme speed, and unplugged all the wires connected to the experimental cabin. The afterimage stopped, and it could be seen that it was a non-mainstream youth with messy silver-white hair. Quicksilver Pietro said bluntly, this is very dangerous, I can't let you continue. I think so. A very young and beautiful dark blonde woman in a red windbreaker walked into the laboratory, and Wanda, one of the twins, spoke. Stop it, Tony. A tall and strong Caucasian handsome man holding a metal buckler with a pentagram walked out after him. It was Captain America Steve Rogers, who had recovered from the freezing for about 2 years. Don't you all want me to do this? Tony Stark frowned deeply, looked at the program that was still being uploaded, and insisted, but I must be doing the right thing this time. The words did not fall. Call out. A golden-haired man wearing a red cloak and silver armor flew in at a high speed. Thor flew into the laboratory and rushed straight to the experimental cabin, swinging the silver Thor's hammer in his hand without the slightest hesitation. ZZ. Immediately, Thor's hammer spewed out dazzling and surging thunder and lightning, pouring into the regeneration cradle that was uploading data. Booma. The next moment, the regenerative cradle was completely formed and opened its golden and silver eyes, and broke out directly from the experimental cabin. The extremely powerful perfect body stagnated in the air of the laboratory without breaking. At this moment, Iron Man Tony Stark in the laboratory, Hulk Dr. Banner, Thor, the twins Quicksilver Pietro and Wanda, as well as Captain America Steve, and the male agent in black who just arrived at the door. Everyone on the field stopped all their movements, and Chi-Chi was surprised to see the existence of the stagnation in the air. His tall and slender body is made of metal, showing perfect and powerful muscle lines between the steel armor and the real person, and the gemstone inlaid on the forehead has a light yellow luster. Who are you? Thor held Thor's hammer tightly, looked directly at him, and asked the common doubts of everyone on the field. I'm not Jarvis, nor the successor of Ultron. The perfect vibrating metal mechanism slowly opened its mouth, with a calm and gentle voice. Vision. Ye thought about it for a while, facing everyone in the Avengers Alliance, he continued to add. I'm just me, I'm just a Vision. Quote, real world. A whole week has passed since the mist incident. Tianhe City evacuated the residents first. After the 10 million ton nuclear explosion, the fog did not dissipate, but continued to expand. The mysterious mist that spawned unknown monsters not only completely covered Tianhe City, but also continued to spread thousands of kilometers away in the next 3 days. The 2 cities adjacent to Tianhe City also evacuated their residents one after another. 50 million people were directly or indirectly affected by the disaster, and 1/3 of the territory of Dokkan Autonomous Prefecture fell. Fortunately in misfortune, after the fog covered the 3 cities including Tianhe City, it no longer spread outward. But the invasion apparently did not end there. After all, the fog has been there and has not dissipated, and no one guarantees whether it will continue to expand its coverage area in the future. But even nuclear explosions are useless. Who can stop the fog? One way or another. In short, the impact of the mist incident is bound to be far-reaching. Seeing that the Star Dragon Federation is completely unable to hide it, it can only admit the existence of this world to the citizens of the Federation for the first time, invasion. And the fog file is an SSS-level invasion, state destruction level. The world was in an uproar. The Star Dragon Federation also took advantage of the opportunity to announce to the global public for the first time the existence of the invisible guardians of the Supernatural Department, so as to appease the panic of the citizens. At this time, Star Dragon Federation, Western Jurisdiction, Demei Autonomous Prefecture, Beishan City. On the sacred square in the city center, under the bright sun. Under the speech platform, there was a vast sacred square that could accommodate 100,000 people. At this moment, the vast area was full of federal citizens, and the people present even occupied several road blocks around the square. The scene was full of excitement, and the roaring sound echoed over the city. Media reporters from the eastern and western jurisdictions, autonomous prefectures, and cities all cast their fiery eyes on the podium at this time. Everyone knows. Today, it is bound to be recorded in the history of the Star Dragon Federation, and they will witness it with their own eyes. Noon, exactly 12 o'clock. The noisy sound suddenly fell silent, and the sea of AA people in the square, no matter men, women, young or old, all looked at the podium expectantly and excitedly. A middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes took the lead on the podium. He wiped the sweat off his face, facing the eyes of hundreds of thousands of people, and the live broadcast on the same stage from all over the world. He couldn't help laughing at himself. To be honest, as the mayor of Beishan City, it's the first time I've seen so many people, a little nervous. The federal people in the audience laughed. Indeed, an unprecedented event like today almost happens once in 100 years. Okay, I think everyone will come here, and it's not for me. The mayor of Beishan City said to the loudspeaker microphone with self-knowledge, so, I won't talk nonsense anymore. Today, I will introduce a very special existence to everyone present, residents of Shirakami City, federal citizens of the Western Jurisdiction, and human beings all over the world. The mayor of Shirakami City had a loud voice and his face was flushed with excitement. In the past few years, he has been secretly sheltering the Western jurisdiction and coordinating the supernatural department. I have known him for a long time, but every time I see him, I still feel extremely excited. I firmly believe that the power of the Star Dragon Federation is enough to defeat all evil invasions. Now, let's invite people from the Motherland. The words just fell. Needle dropping could be heard in the square, and everyone on the scene held their breath and stared at the podium. And all over the world, billions of people are also watching the real-time broadcast through TV screens, paying attention to the present. However, after the mayor of Shirakami finished his introduction, no one stepped onto the podium. 10 seconds later, even the mayor of Beishin City was puzzled, and many people in the audience suddenly looked up at the sky in astonishment. What is that? More and more people looked up, and the reporters on the scene also turned their cameras to the sunny sky. Is it an airplane or a bird? No, that's a person. A person flew hundreds of meters above the square, and then landed straight towards the podium in the square. The flag of the Star Dragon Federation was used as a cloak, fluttering behind the man. Just like that, bathed in the sun, watched by hundreds of thousands of people present and billions of people in front of TV. A handsome young man with a fashionable haircut in a blue suit flew down from the sky and landed firmly on the podium where the mayor of Shirakami City was. The mayor of Beishin City laughed and said, "By the way, just a warm reminder, it wasn't the so-called special effects just now. People from the Motherland really can fly, and they can fly faster than airplanes." Hello everyone, I am from the Motherland. The Motherlander looked around and showed a charming and bright smile. Real or fake? This is definitely the 99% of Star Dragon Federation's people, the first time they saw the extraordinary power with their own eyes, and everyone stood there in shock. Motherland. I don't know who yelled first. Immediately, the square echoed with the voice of people from the Motherland. The mayor of Beishin City smiled. His initial reaction was not much better than that of the public, so he tactfully gave up the podium. The people from the Motherland pressed down with both hands, and the aura of the superpower pervaded the square, making the square quickly quiet. I am the head of the supernatural department of the Western jurisdiction, and I have been committed to combating potential supernatural invasions and ensuring the safety of citizens. The Motherlander stood alone on the podium, with a perfect smile, and after the flight debuted, he began an unusually righteous and passionate speech. After the speech, it was the reporter's turn to ask questions, and hundreds of hands in the front row immediately raised their hands. "Come on, lady." The people from the Motherland randomly ordered a female reporter with high breasts. The female reporter was so excited that her chest shook violently, and she asked, "People from the Motherland, what do you think of the fog incident in the East?" Reporters from other media also stared straight at the people of the Motherland. This is also the most urgent question that they, the people of the Federation, want to know at the moment. The people of the Motherland naturally know that there is no way to bypass the fog event. I heard about it on the day of the accident, and I immediately applied for support. The native of the Motherland smiled slightly and said with a little regret, "Unfortunately, due to improper communication between the East and the West, the nuclear bomb had already been dropped, so I thought check back later. However, I don't think there is any need to change the date. Let's go now and go to the mist to have a look." The fog that everyone fears is as easy and simple as going to a supermarket for shopping in the population of the Motherland. So, after finishing this sentence, under the shocked eyes of countless people, the Motherlander on the podium slightly bent his knees, and then took off on the spot, like a human-shaped cannonball soaring into the sky at high speed, breaking through layers of sound barriers at an altitude of 100 meters, and flying towards the east outside Beishin City at extreme speed. Staying in place, the dumbfounded audience took a long time to react. The people of the Motherland want to go eastward and go deep into the foggy area. Come, go deep into the restricted area of AA human beings where there are countless unknown monsters, nuclear radiation, etc. On this day, the world is a sensation. The people of the Motherland flew over the border of the Western jurisdiction, flew across the ocean, entered the Eastern jurisdiction, and flew directly to the Dokkan Autonomous Prefecture. Along the way, people from all over the country photographed the flying figures of the people from the Motherland traveling eastward. The more you enter the Dokkan Autonomous Prefecture and fly in the direction of Tianhe City, the fewer humans you can see. Intel. In the field of vision of the people of the motherland, there is a white mist that connects the sky and the earth and covers everything. This is the foggy area at the SSS invasion level. The Motherlander stopped at a high altitude beyond the edge of the fog, his blue eyes narrowed. Actually, a week ago, he said that the nuclear radiation should be lowered a little before starting. It was just an evasion, and with his physique, he was not afraid of nuclear radiation. After all, if the influence of the fog incident didn't expand, how could he make an official appearance in front of the public? If I can solve the mist incident, then I can take advantage of the trend and ascend to the real altar that everyone is looking at. The corner of the Motherland's mouth raised an arc, and without hesitation, he continued to fly into the fog-shrouded area. He wanted to see if there was anything in the fog that could stop him. Call. The Motherlander flew into the fog-shrouded area, and the white mist surged, slightly opening a passage under the strong wind. The people of the Motherland kept flying at an altitude of 100 meters, and their eyes used supervision and perspective, ignoring the fog with extremely low visibility, and quickly scanned the places they passed along the way. On the edge of the foggy area covering thousands of kilometers is the wilderness. There are abandoned vehicles and various items left on the road, apparently left by the local residents who evacuated a few days ago. Other than that, I couldn't see any living creatures. It was lifeless, like an area abandoned by humans for many years. The people from the Motherland continued to fly for several kilometers, and the white fog in front suddenly turned gray and black. Oh, the people from the Motherland looked up and saw that it was not a gray-black mist, but monsters the size of vultures, but because they were densely packed into a group, it looked like a gray-black mist. He naturally recognized that this was the mist bird in the report of the misty incident Philea the thrush. A single animal is judged as an F-level risk factor, and saliva has its own corrosive effect. The level of minions and ferocity is several times that of ordinary falcons, and they can hunt in groups. Once encountered, even ordinary troops will find it difficult. Come. The people from the Motherland watched the flock of misty birds flying towards them, and the corners of their mouths raised an arc, without any intention of avoiding them, but crossed their hands in front of their bodies. The next moment, his flying speed suddenly soared tenfold, breaking through the sound barrier all of a sudden, and the Star Dragon flag was hunting and moving, turning into a cannonball and rushing into the thrush flock. In an instant, countless thrushes screamed in panic, clouds of blood mist exploded, forming a blood trail in the air, and countless wrecks of thrushes scattered towards the foggy area below. That's it. The Motherlander smiled coldly, put down his blood-stained hands, and glanced back, his face full of disdain and arrogance. He stopped investigating, and flew at full speed, heading towards the center of the foggy area, which was Tianhe City, which was the first to fall and be nuclear exploded. Along the way, the deeper you go into the fog, the more fog monsters you will encounter. Contact each type of people from the Motherland separately. Basically, they all correspond to the monsters that have registered descriptions in the files of the mist event. E.g., the same mist spiders that live in groups, the spider silk they spit out has high temperature, and it is registered as an F-level dangerous invasion factor. The misty praying mantis, which is 6 or 7 meters tall, moves quickly and sensitively. The mantis knife can cut through metal street lamps, and is registered as a D-level dangerous intrusion factor. The misty tentacle monster, which starts at least 10 meters away and is as big as a hill, has enough defense to resist bullets, and the several tentacles used for long-distance hunting attack at an extremely fast speed. Boom. A corner of the fog lifted. The Motherlander swooped down, blasted the head of a misty mantis with one punch, and then quickly turned around. His red eyes burst out with heat rays, cutting a large misty tentacle monster about 100 meters away in half. That's it. The people from the Motherland tried their hand and continued to take off explosively, getting closer to Tianhe City as the destination. The ferocious and terrifying fog monsters passing by along the way are not his enemies in one blow. This invincible scene of chopping melons and vegetables was naturally recorded by the miniature camera worn by the people of the Motherland. The corners of the mouth of the people from the Motherland are more and more curved. He was worrying about not having any material to shoot before, but now he has foreseen in advance the honor scene where he is praised as a superhero, savior, and god by the outside world. Sure enough, the Eastern Mist really came to the right place. Fans, 1 billion is not too much to start with, right? Until arriving at Tianhe City in the depths of the mist, the people of the motherland always thought happily in this way. The source city where the fog invaded first broke out a week ago, Tianhe City. The people from the motherland just flew into the suburban area, and their brows were instantly frowned. They smelled a strong smell of blood and decay, which wafted along with the cold and thick fog. Looking down, the urban area is full of misty monsters and human remains. The streets that look like Doomsday ruins are in a mess. Nests of mist spiders and mist bugs are multiplying, and large mist mantises and mist tentacles can be seen everywhere. Although only a week has passed, this modern civilized city seems to have been abandoned by humans for more than 10 years, and it has been completely reduced to a part of the foggy ecology. Here is the real forbidden zone for humans. The pupils of the people of the motherland shrank suddenly, and saw a huge and boundless black shadow moving in the mist, with sheep-like horns protruding above the skyscrapers, and huge limbs and hooves shaped like giant pillars. It is the invading monster with the highest risk factor recorded in the Misty Files, the Misty Black Goat, which is temporarily judged as A-level, a crisis of destroying the city. Even after reading the Misty Files, the people of the motherland still feel a little shocked when they really see the Misty Black Goat. They never expected it to be so big. But here it is, the camera is still recording. Let me try it, the so-called strongest monster in the fog. The people of the motherland were separated by 1,000 meters, their eyes were reddened, and 2 hot sight lasers burst forward. The red hot sight laser pierced through the mist, and hit the giant body of the misty black goat, directly opening 2 holes of flesh and blood. But the black goat was really too big. To the opponent, it was like being pricked by a needle, which was considered a minor injury. The face of the motherlander was not very good looking. While maintaining the heat rays of his eyes, he flew forward at a high speed, and his fists directly hit the hole. Boom! Blood splatter. The whole person of the motherland directly pierced through a giant hind leg of the misty black goat, and was covered in blood. This wound was pierced by a nail. The misty black goat suddenly screamed strangely, looked behind the motherlander, the sound was ear-piercing and vibrating, and then walked out of the city and fled. The earth trembled and the city was in turmoil. The people of the motherland who were stagnant in the sky and who were about to continue to attack were stunned. Such a misty black goat monster is too huge, and its defense power is also amazing. The people of the motherland feel that they have to fight a bloody battle with all their strength to kill it. And now, the misty black goat has escaped. The people of the motherland stared at the huge black shadow going away, resisted the urge to laugh up to the sky, and maintained a good character. That's it. This is the scariest invading monster in the Mist Files incident. Isn't this a natural material venue for recording superheroes for him? The motherlander didn't continue to chase, turned around and continued to fly into the urban area of Tianhe City. As long as he thoroughly explored the foggy area, even if the fog couldn't be completely eliminated, the material for his trip was enough. A smile appeared on the blood-stained face of the motherland, but when he reached the urban area destroyed by the nuclear explosion, his body suddenly stopped in the air, and his blue eyes were obviously dull. I see. In the downtown area of Tianhe, which was destroyed by the nuclear explosion, a huge abyss pit remained in place, covering an area of about 10 square kilometers. And it was such a huge pit in the abyss that was not only filled, but also piled up into black mountains. That is, the corpses of misty black goats. At a glance, there are more than 30 corpses, all of which are filled in the pits. Some of them had their sheep-like heads cut off, or their bodies were split in half, or none of their 5 limbs was complete, and all of them were buried in the huge pit in this city. The people from the motherland swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and since they became adults, an emotion that they have never experienced again came to their hearts inexplicably. In fact, he has always had doubts. According to the Mist File, monsters will continue to grow in the mist, but I didn't find many monsters along the way. So, where have all the mist monsters gone? Now, the people of the motherland know the answer. The misty monsters, including the misty black goat, were buried in Tianhe City, the source city of the invasion. What the hell is here? The people of the motherland recalled the misty black goat that fled just now, and it seemed that it was an existence in the city here that was afraid. He suddenly noticed something, turned sideways in the air, and saw a mysterious existence that was not described in the fog files standing quietly on top of a half-collapsed building on the edge of the giant crater. That is, a 2-meter-tall bone spur humanoid monster. The people of the Motherland stagnated in the 100-meter-high air, their sharp blue eyes widened little by little, staring at the existence on the half-collapsed building. How should I describe this monster who lives in the mist but is incompatible with the ecology of the mist? 2 meters tall, with a slender body and hideous bony spurs on his back, he barely maintains a human shape. His body surface is a complete exoskeleton showing muscle curves, as if covered with a layer of smooth and ferocious gray bone armor from head to toe. It stood motionless on the roof like a bone statue, with its eyes closed, and a small witch doll hung around its waist without any clothes. The blue witch doll also has her eyes closed, wearing a witch tower hat, a snow-white cloak and a small skirt, cute and elegant, in stark contrast to the huge and terrifying bony spurs. The blue witch puppet swayed gently with the breeze, and the hem of the skirt also swayed, but it never fell off the bone spur. And next it is the huge nuclear explosion pit that buried dozens of misty black goat monsters. The scene that appeared in the depths of the mist is undoubtedly a very strange scene. The people of the Motherland hovered in the 100-meter-high air, staring at the existence of this bone spur, and could detect a little breath of life from the opponent, but it was difficult for the clairvoyant eyes to penetrate the surface of the exoskeleton whose composition was unknown. The bone spurs didn't seem to see him, his chest rose and fell evenly, standing motionless in place, as if in sleep. What the hell? The Motherlander sneered, his eyes burst into red light, and his hot gaze slanted across the buildings and bony spurs from top to bottom. Rumble. The entire building, which was already half collapsed, completely collapsed and was buried together with the bone spurs. The people of the Motherland stand in the sky, still proudly holding their heads high. Even if they see dozens of black goat monster corpses, they are confident that there is no existence in the current foggy area that can stop them. He is confident, given himself a certain amount of time, he can kill so many misty black goats. What's more, the people of the Motherland don't think that these are killed by the existence of bone spurs. According to the ecological law that the larger the fog system, the stronger it is, the existence of these bone spurs is only at a very low level. The building completely collapsed, followed by a wave of dust. Go back. The people of the Motherland no longer pay attention to the situation there, feel the potential danger, and do not intend to continue to detect the foggy area. He had an attitude of solving it if he could. If he really couldn't solve the fog incident, there was no need to continue to work hard. The video he had recorded would prove his strength. In fact, the more intrusion incidents, the better, so as to truly stabilize one's own position. Thus, the natives who were parked in the air turned around and were about to leave outside the misty Tianhe city. But at this moment, there was a sound of movement from below behind him, accompanied by a loud sound of stomping and sonic boom. What a! The Motherlander looked back in astonishment, and saw the ruins of the collapsed building below surging away, and a huge white bony figure approached the 100-meter high altitude where he was, and the petite blue witch doll hanging from his waist was raised back high. The people of the Motherland were caught off guard, and were directly hit by the jumping bone spur monster, just like being hit by an alien warship at full speed, and the figure that was originally standing in the sky flew upside down. Boom! The Chinese crashed into a building in the rear, completely passed through more than a dozen floors of the building's walls, and smashed hard into the ground of the ruins of the city. Within a second, boom, the earth shook violently, and the gravel flew up. The man from the Motherland rushed out from the fallen ground, his hair was disheveled and slightly embarrassed, the veins on his forehead and neck were prominent, and he looked at the bone spurs that fell in front of him, his eyes were red with anger and shot out hot gazes. Die to me, he growled. Laugh. The heat sight laser, which can penetrate everything and is invincible, falls on the chest with gray and white bone spurs, but it is completely blocked by the thin gray and cold exoskeleton. The heat sight laser energy is quickly absorbed even along the skeletal muscle curve. How is this possible? The people of the Motherland opened their eyes wide in astonishment, unwilling to believe it, they continued to keep their hot gazes bursting out. Ruining Raihua Yaimeng stepped forward like this, carrying 2 heat sight laser beams on his shoulders, keeping his eyes closed to sleep, rushing to him like a sleepwalker. Go away. The people of the Motherland didn't know whether it was anger or horror, and they subconsciously threw out a punch. The fist was as fast as lightning, piercing through the air in an instant. In the past, this punch could instantly kill everything. Ruining Raihua Yaimong was half a beat behind, but he also raised his right hand with a sharp bone fist, and punched forward casually. This punch came first, and it clashed heavily with the fist of the Motherland. The moment when the big and small fists met a boom. It was obviously just a fistfight, but it was like two missile heads colliding. The strong wind surged away layer by layer, sweeping away the white fog with a radius of 1 kilometer, and countless monsters in the fog panicked and ran away from the area. The people of the Motherland only felt a force beyond their own coming from the bone spur fist, and their right arm felt the long-lost pain and numbness. Fly upside down for a distance. With his super strength, speed, and super physique, he actually lost to the opponent. What kind of monster is this? How could there be such a powerful monster in this world? People in the Motherland have subverted their cognition and began to doubt life. Is it true that I was invincible in the first half of my life? Before the people from the Motherland could react, they saw the bony spur monster not far ahead. The chest of the exoskeleton was constantly reddening, and with a heavy foot down, a ball of lightning spread out. The ruins of the city trembled violently, and the extremely destructive energy exploded with lightning, wreaking havoc on everything within 100 meters. The people of the Motherland who were still in the low sky flew out again. Yi Meng, the destroyer in the center of the ball lightning, let out a low growl, but woke up from sleep without opening his eyes, and opened his mouth wide to shoot out a red-gold scorching beam of destruction. This bone spur monster can actually fire lasers, and compared to the other party's thermal sight, it's like a small water gun. This thought flashed through the confused brain of the native of the Motherland, and he forcibly stopped his body in the air. It was too late to dodge, so he could only protect his body with his hands crossed, and gritted his teeth to meet the incoming destructive beam. ZZ. The thick golden red beam of destructive energy blasted out the Motherlanders, flew 1,000 meters in an instant, smashed through several buildings in the ruins of the city, and shot to the street on the other side. Boom. Destroying Raihua Yaimong closed her eyes, destroying with instinct while sleepwalking, and continued to leap high towards the direction of the Motherland. Not waiting for him to fall from a height of several hundred meters. The broken rocks below were stirred up and flew, and the people from the Motherland flew out of it. It's just that the current him no longer has the prestige and decency of the past, with scars and black hair, and the battle clothes and the Star Dragon flag cloak on his body are in tatters. Facing the destroying Raihua Yaimong falling from the sky, the face of the people of the Motherland changed, and they no longer had the fighting spirit to fight, so they turned around and accelerated and flew out of Tianhe City. The moment Yaimong of Ruin Daily Chemical landed on the ground, a hurricane exploded with a bang, and a building collapsed, jumping and flying in exaggerated curves to chase after the Motherland. Beyond the fog, all over the world in the Star Dragon Federation, billions of people are looking forward to the Homelander who is traveling eastward and going deep into the foggy area, waiting for him to defeat the monsters deep in the fog and return triumphantly as a savior hero. The supernatural department in the eastern jurisdiction was a little panicked. The moment the people of the Motherland announced their eastward journey, they held high-level meetings one after another. Our patron saint, Dragon Girl, is still in the Diamond State. What if the people of the Motherland take advantage of the opportunity to attack her? People from the Motherland wouldn't be crazy like that. Not likely, but you must be careful. After all, basically no one can stop him from what he wants to do. Let's go ask him, Kunlun Dragon. You said that the people of the Motherland will not overturn in the fog. Someone suddenly raised this point. Everyone at the meeting was silent for a moment, and then someone shook his head and laughed. I think too much. He is a native of the Western jurisdiction. Even if the fog incident cannot be solved, as long as he wants to protect himself, there is basically nothing that can threaten him. At this time, within the mist, with scorched black hair, bruises all over his body, and a blue-bottomed battle suit and tattered national flag cloak, the native of the Motherland looked extremely embarrassed. He was desperately rushing out of Tianhe City, flying towards the direction outside the fog to escape. Behind him, boom, buildings smashed and collapsed one after another, and a gray-white human-shaped bony spur kept jumping up, chasing after him with extremely fast vertical leaps, always hanging tightly behind him. The people of the Motherland flew at full speed, their eyes were bloodshot, and they did not dare to stop at all. He has fully understood that this monster is unreasonably powerful, it is a real monster. Fortunately, this monster has no intelligence, and even seems to be in a state of sleepwalking with out-of-control instincts. No, this is not a good thing. Just sleepwalking, forcing him to run away, in case this bone spur monster really wakes up. The people of the Motherland suddenly felt the chill rising up their backs, and after they became adults, fear that they could no longer feel hit their hearts. While flying, the native of the country turned his head suddenly, and saw the bony spurs leaping up to 1,000 meters in the air, and the gray right hand stretched forward almost reached his back. This jumps faster than flying. The face of the people of the Motherland changed drastically, and they continued to rapidly increase the height, and the only remaining Star Dragon flag cloak was completely torn by sharp claws. Fortunately, at least it can't fly. The people of the Motherland watched Yaimong fall again, and did not dare to let go of the breath. They held their breath and continued to climb to an altitude of tens of thousands of meters. Hoo-hoo! The Motherlander stopped 10,000 meters in the air, his always calm and handsome face was still in shock, and he breathed in the thin air rapidly. Now, it can be regarded as getting rid of, right? The next moment, a 2-meter-tall gray-white figure broke through the 10,000-meter fog and clouds, and carried a small car on its shoulders, throwing it violently at the people of the Motherland. In the middle of the car, the Chinese people who were stuck in the 10,000-meter sky, the car dented and shattered, and the people in the car fell towards the area below. It kept falling, and dropped to zero rapidly from a height of 10,000 meters. Crash! The people of the Motherland used their flying ability to remove most of their inertia. Even so, they still plowed a deep ditch on the ground before they could barely stop. He climbed up from the deep ditch regardless of his appearance, and what greeted him was a slap from Yaimong, who fell to the ground and destroyed Yaimong. This slap was like a millstone, it directly set off a storm, and sent the climbed native to fly 100 meters, his facial features almost deformed. You dare to hit me, dare to hit my face. Smashing into the ruins of a building, the face of the Motherland was hot, the head was buzzing, and the body and mind were greatly devastated. This slap, to the people of the Motherland, can be more harmful than physical harm. He is a native of the Motherland, the patron saint of the Western jurisdiction, and the god of the future. The people of the Motherland really want to stop pretending as usual, let go of the persona and moral pretense, and directly fight back violently, twisting the necks of those who don't like it. After all, whoever has a hard fist is right. This is the only rule and law of the extraordinary world. But the problem is, it's the opponent who's fisting hard now, not him. Not to mention slapping him in the face, this monster is simply beating him to death. And let alone the opponent, it was difficult to even break the defense just now. Shame, this is the biggest shame in this life. Anger, grievances, blood, desolation, etc., the people of the Motherland swallowed them all, got up without a word, and flew away in another direction to escape. Run, run, run. The blood-stained and charred face of the Motherland fled wildly, looking at the terrifying bone spurs chasing after him again, and the destructive lightning beam that swept everything. I am a native of the Motherland, and I will never die here. The people of the Motherland yelled, and the trembling voice spread far away in the foggy area of the human forbidden zone. Even he didn't notice. I have gone from the initial arrogance and self-confidence to sweep away all monsters and powerful enemies in the fog, to I feel a little flustered and explore the fog area and then withdraw immediately, to at least defeat this unknown sleepwalking bone spur monster. Until now, it's enough to survive under the hands of this ridiculously strong bone spur monster. It's enough to escape this foggy hell. Mom. The standard in my heart is constantly lowering. Heart of the strong, self-respect and honor. In front of this powerful monster that only kills everything for the sake of destruction, everything can be discarded, otherwise the only thing to meet is the consequences of being destroyed. Escape, escape, escape. The people of the Motherland kept rolling, crawling, flying and jumping, constantly avoiding bone spur monsters or violent physical attacks, or sweeping destruction beams, and kept flying and fleeing in the direction they came from. Then, even the people of the Motherland don't know how they persisted until they fled to the edge of the fog. In short, no part of his body was intact, his face was red, swollen and bruised, blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth, and only a few pieces of fabric were left hanging on his blue battle suit. It's just heaven and earth. Run away, hope is ahead. The Motherlander was confused, and with his super physique, his physical strength was almost exhausted. He didn't know how many times he got up from the ground with severe pain in his hands and feet, and continued to fly desperately towards the edge of the fog. He is a native of the Motherland and cannot die here. Behind the Motherlander, the suburban city in the mist ignited raging flames, and an extremely destructive beam of destruction pierced through everything. Yaimeng continued sleepwalking to the edge of the mist. Compared with the almost exhausted people of the Motherland, the energy aura on his body increased instead of falling, and the destructive aura on his body made all the fog monsters along the road back away. In this week, a new emperor has been added to the mist ecological chain here, that is, Yaimeng, who destroys the sun, and he feeds on high-level monsters including black goats. No matter how low intelligence the fog creature is, he has recognized his breath and will flee far away. Fog Edge Area. There are still 100 meters, which is the outside world without fog. The people of the Motherland seem to have seen the end of the deadliest marathon, the junction of hell and heaven. But at this moment, the hurricane sound barrier behind him exploded again, and a bony spur palm was pressed on his back, causing the Motherlander to fall from the air all the way to the surface. No, do not want. The people of the Motherland struggled desperately in the ground, feeling the irresistible force on their backs. Their sharp bone spurs and sharp claws pierced their super physiques, and the blood oozing out stained the surrounding ground scarlet. Obviously, it's only a little bit away, just a little bit away. Looking at the light at the edge of the fog ahead, the people of the Motherland suddenly exhausted their last bit of strength and flew forward recklessly. The back was immediately cut open by sharp claws and 4 deep scars were visible, and the blood seemed to be spilled without money. Call. The people of the Motherland flew forward desperately, rushed over the edge of the fog, and flew out of the fog. In situ, ruining Raihua Yaimeng's eyes were closed tightly, and the bone spur in his right hand was dripping with blood. He stood motionless on the edge of the fog, still in a deep sleep, as if he had turned into a statue again. Only above the waist, the petite witch doll swayed gently as always. Everything just now was indeed just in reality, the dreamwalking behavior of destroying daily chemical Yaimeng to vent her destructive instinct. And the subconsciousness restricted him, not to leave this fog. Just, at this time, between Yaimeng's brows, which looked like a mask of white bones, a little bit of warm yellow light came out, and the blurred outline of a gemstone could be faintly seen. Slap! A young man covered in blood and bruises, like a charred black man, flew obliquely from the foggy area. He was in the air, with 4 shocking bone scratches on his back and blood pouring out, and fell from a low altitude to the muddy ground not far outside the foggy area. Middle. The people of the Motherland felt that their whole body was lost, lying in the mud and eating a mouthful of mud, unable to lift up any strength, looking at the fog behind them in horror and despair. The edge of the fog. It can be seen that the powerful monster that shattered all his pride and self-confidence, like a hell demon, stood motionless in the fog as it was first seen, and had no intention of continuing to chase it out. Despite this, the people of the Motherland still struggled to crawl with their hands, staggering and continuing to stay away from the foggy area. Stay away from this hell. The edge of the fog. Yaimeng, who ruined the daily chemical industry, stood motionless in the same place, and in the mind of the eyebrows filled with the red will to destroy, a pale yellow gem phantom gradually emerged, and began to dispel the chaotic and out-of-control will to destroy little by little. The petite witch doll hung around the waist of Yaimeng's exoskeleton. His eyes were closed as usual, but his eyelashes trembled slightly as if being blown by the wind. The 2 special beings, one big and one small, seemed to be awakening at this moment. The yellow gemstone inside Yaimeng's brow bone was dimmed, and the light emanating from the phantom of the gemstone was still too dim, and the speed of dispelling the will of destruction was still not as fast as the regeneration of the will of destruction. It's just that no matter how the endless will of destruction impacts the baptism, it always exists as a faint gem phantom. Isn't it time? I don't know who let out a faint sigh in the mist. A group of storms broke out on the ground, and the fog stirred up again. Yaimeng, who destroyed the daily chemical industry, did not wake up in the end. Instead, she turned around and jumped towards the monster deep in the fog, continuing to sleepwalk and destroy everything in the fog. In the dream, the parallel universe of Marvel in the past, New York. The Avengers building under the Stark Industries property. high-end laboratory on the top floor. On the shattered experimental cabin, a tall, slender and perfect vibrating body autonomously stagnated in the air in the room, facing the glass window, watching its own appearance reflected in the window with wisdom and will. On the forehead and between the brows, the inlaid yellow gemstones slightly reveal a mysterious warm light. Perhaps at the last moment when it was finalized as a cradle of regeneration, it was influenced by the subconscious of the owner of the cradle of regeneration, so that the surface of the vibrating gold showed a black and red background, and a mysterious S-shaped pattern was faintly branded on the chest. His face was like the face of a young man wearing a black gold mask, with well-defined features. Inside the laboratory, Iron Man Tony Stark, Hulk Dr. Banner, Thor, Captain America Steve Rogers, Hawkeye Clint, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and member of the Avengers, and superpowers from Hydra Quicksilver Pietro and Wanda twins. Most of the people kept their vigilance, staring intently at the existence of vibrating gold wisdom hanging in the air of the laboratory. Not Jarvis, the successor of Ultron, but an independent self, Vision. Dr. Banner narrowed his eyes, repeating what he had heard before in amazement. Anyway, they did succeed, creating a being more powerful than Ultron. But whether the opponent is a monster or their ally is temporarily unknown. Hearing that the other party said that he was not Jarvis, Tony Stark was obviously disappointed, but his eyes remained firmly believing that there was nothing wrong with him coming to this point. Saul, you actually helped them create such an existence. Captain America Steve looked to the side in amazement. Thor, who was holding Thor's hammer, might not have completed the last piece of the puzzle if the opponent hadn't charged Thor with his hammer, and achieved this kind of wisdom beyond imagination. Gold exists. He has the Mind Stone between his eyebrows, one of the 6 Infinity Stones. Thor pointed to the yellow gemstone on Vision's forehead, and stated his thoughts and decisions bluntly. Tony Stark is right. We were all on the Soul Gem before, and got some kind of omen. The future something very dire may happen, so we need an ally who holds the gem like this. Captain America frowned, looked at the Zengen intelligent existence who called himself Vision, again, and asked in a deep voice, so, are you our ally? Are you on Ultron's side, or are you on our side? Side. When the others heard the words, they also cast their gazes at the vibrating gold body phantom suspended in the air, and the answer from the other party would obviously determine the future of the world and the next actions. At this time, as a phantom vibrating body suspended in the air, Yi Meng still hadn't realized it, and felt unreal like a dream. Although, the moment is indeed a Marvel dreamland. But Yi Meng really didn't expect that she would come to this step. Things have to start from 10 minutes ago. Yimeng had just arrived in this Marvel time and space, and found that the space-time shuttle had deviated, so that the moment when he finally arrived was more than a full year later than expected. Now is the time when the Avengers 2-time storyline has officially started. Therefore, after realizing that the Soul Stone is about to die in the cradle of regeneration and the superhero Vision appears as an artificial intelligence, it will be difficult for me to obtain the complete Soul Stone. The artificial intelligence Yimeng hurriedly followed the network signal to the building that was the base of the Avengers. The Avengers building has an intelligence system provided by Stark Industries as a network security guarantee. Even Ultron has difficulty in invading into the network system without alerting the Avengers. But artificial intelligence Yimeng is an exception. As an artificial intelligence born in the late stage of Stark Industries, no one knows Stark Industries and technology better than him, even Ultron is far inferior to him. After all, artificial intelligence Yimeng is a full 10 years ahead of the past Marvel Universe. Without disturbing Iron Man and the Hulk, the artificial intelligence Yimeng successfully invaded and entered the Avengers building, but found that he was still a step late, when Dr. Banner had already started uploading Jarvis's underlying program. In other words, the superhero Vision is about to be born. At that moment, the artificial intelligence Yi dreamed of countless possibilities, and finally chose the most direct, most dangerous, and most unpredictable solution. About to upload the data of your own existence to the regeneration cradle. In the end, the underlying program of Jarvis completed the data of the artificial intelligence avatar, and Yimeng became the final owner of the cradle of regeneration as a matter of course. In other words, he became a Vision. Become an original superhero character who has appeared many times in the Avengers movies and has a profound influence on the story and time. At first, I just wanted to get the Mind Stone in the parallel time and space in the past. How did it become the superhero Vision in the Avengers? Even though the soul gem can be regarded as obtained, and it was embedded in the center of his forehead and eyebrows. But Yi Meng still felt that everything was too wonderful, as if in the dark, fate led him to the present moment of the dream and became a hallucination. Vision Yi Meng's super brain thought quickly, thinking a lot at once. But anyway, in the present of the Marvel Dreamland, he's clearly going to be in this past parallel universe for a while. Even if you want to return to the original Marvel space-time universe, you have to regain Pym particles and create a time machine that travels into the quantum realm in this past parallel universe. Which side am I on? Vision Yi Meng stopped thinking, facing Captain America's question and the vigilant eyes of all the superheroes on the field. He transformed into a vibrating gold Superman battlesuit, wearing a black gold translucent cloak, lightly fell to the ground from low altitude, and responded calmly, I am not on the side of Ultron, nor on the side of Ultron. On your side, only on the side of life. Ultron wants to destroy the Earth, and stands on the opposite side of life, so I will help you solve Ultron. These are the original words from the beginning of the illusion in the movie, but Yi Meng borrowed it at this time, and felt that it also echoed her own state of mind and attitude. He really does not stand on the side of any force, because he needs to stay in this past time and space for a period of time, so the Earth cannot be destroyed, and he is indeed on the side of the life of the people on the Earth. This is not a lie. The members of the Avengers Alliance felt the sincerity from Vision Yi Meng's words, and they all secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Now they really need an ally like Vision. It seems that this can be regarded as a true illusion to get away with it. Yi Meng thought to himself that he only needs to obtain the complete soul gem, and there is no need to go against another Avenger alliance in parallel time and space. Fortunately, he already had the experience of playing the role of the superhero Vision in Westview Town. And many more. Imagining Yi Meng seemed to suddenly think of something, her whole body shook, and her fast-running brain stopped thinking for a moment. At this time, a pleasant female voice with a bit of hostility came to my ears, but my previous telepathy, on the soul gem, I felt pain and destruction. You will bring disaster to this world. Vision Yi Meng Zhenjin turned around with a slightly stiff body. What caught my eye was a young girl who had just grown up. Her dark blonde hair was casually draped over her shoulders and back, her beautiful fair face was covered with eye makeup, but she could still see a trace of youthfulness, but her proud and beautiful figure was already showing. When she came out, the red windbreaker jacket couldn't hide her curves, and an absolute area was revealed between the knee-length skirt and boots and socks. It's the Scarlet Witch of this past parallel universe, Wanda Maximoff. By the way, she also debuted in Avengers 2, originally as a superpower created by Hydra through the Mind Staff experiment, and then stood on the side of the Avengers to deal with the supervillain Ultron. But, now, seeing the beautiful young girl in front of her eyes, Yi Meng couldn't help but think of that powerful witch in Westview Town with a sad and painful expression. The two are obviously not the same person. Although the appearance is almost the same, and the name, personality, and even the soul may be the same, but they live in two different parallel universes, they should not be exactly the same people. What are you doing looking at me like that? Wanda frowned slightly, her beautiful eyes reflecting Yi Meng, a vision with a golden body. Next to him, Pietro, who is one of the older twins, showed a hint of hostility. It's nothing. If you are interested, you can use telepathy to feel the spiritual gem on me. Vision Yi Meng shook her head, shrugged her shoulders indifferently, and looked around everyone. But shouldn't we start now? Isn't Ultron going to destroy all human beings outside? Even if you have concerns and doubts about me, it's meaningless. I can leave, and none of you can stop me. Saying that, the vibrating gold body that Phantom Yi Meng entity began to blur into a virtual projection. You don't need to believe me. But at least you know that the enemy of the enemy is your friend. And I have decided to help you kill Ultron. Yi Meng didn't tell lies this time, nor did she act for the sake of acting. He thought so. The death of artificial intelligence Ultron is inevitable. If the underlying program of Ultron is also devoured and absorbed as a puzzle, it may be able to go further as an artificial intelligence. Vision Emily also didn't have the idea of AA always playing the role of Vision in the movie. Sooner or later, he will leave this parallel Marvel universe. Help the Avengers in the current parallel world to kill Ultron, then obtain PIM particles, and then use future technology to create a quantum time machine, leave this parallel time and space, and return to the original space-time universe of the artificial intelligence incarnation. This is Yimeng's real purpose and thoughts at the moment. Only, imagining Yimeng's gaze, he couldn't help but fall on Wanda, who was still a girl next to him. Some coincidences in this past parallel universe made him extremely concerned. What? Such a coincidence? This unscientific. At least not scientifically in Marvel. In the night sky, the Avengers fighter plane left New York and headed for the city of Sokovia. The Avengers were finally convinced by Vision Emin, mainly because they really had no choice. The Black Widow was still imprisoned in Sokovia, and Ultron was planning something in Sokovia. It might be too late. Make irreparable sacrifices. In the cabin of the Avengers fighter jet, Vision Yimeng stood quietly on the deck, a pair of eyes watching him from behind. Imagining Yimeng turned her head and met a pair of beautiful eyes with suspicion. "I'll keep an eye on you." Wanda, the windbreaker girl, snorted softly, put her hands on her chest, and said without concealing it, she was still on guard. She once felt strong emotions on the soul gem, and that emotion made her uneasy, and she cared about this existence in front of her very much. Up to you. Vision Yimeng didn't care, but her heart was far less peaceful than it seemed, looking at the night outside the window. The time and space he arrived in now is July 25, 2014, when he met the girl Wanda for the first time. On the other hand, July 25th was an anniversary date that Madam Witch had marked on the calendar in Westview Town before, but had never been announced. And in this past world, he really became a vision. How could there be such a coincidence? The yellow gemstone on the center of Yimeng's brow glowed shimmeringly, and her thoughts flowed. Is there a possibility? The dream world he came to now is not another Marvel parallel universe, but the real past of the previous Marvel universe. I traveled through time and space through the quantum realm, not like the previous members of the Avengers, returning to a parallel universe in the past time and space. Instead, back to the real past of the previous Marvel universe, cause and effect. Indeed, in this way, some incidents and coincidences with the Miss Witch can be explained. But under this premise, there are even more problems that follow. Vision Yimeng Jinyun's eyes flickered, and he quickly deduced in the super brain, trying to figure out the current situation. He returns to the real past and becomes the real Vision. If you follow this way, follow the previous historia. He will die. He will continue to stay here until 4 years later, when Thanos pinches his forehead and takes away the soul gem. The Marvel universe before here has a long-established past history. How can that be? Even if he really stayed in this world, even if he couldn't beat Thanos 4 years later, he would still choose to escape or make other plans. How could he be killed so simply and neatly by Thanos according to the past historical trajectory? This doesn't make sense, and it's not my usual style of doing things. Vision Yimeng touched the soul gem on his forehead, and after merging with the cradle of regeneration, the artificial intelligence data was combined with the soul gem. The advantage of this is that he can borrow the power of the Mind Stone without negative effects, and as the nemesis of artificial intelligence, he can never be invaded by other artificial intelligence. The downside is that once the Mind Stone is separated from Vision's body, his AI avatar will die as well. Therefore, it is absolutely impossible for me to be taken away by Thanos a few years later like the Vision in the original book. Even if I pretend to act in a play, it will not be like this. Vision Yimeng's eyes flickered, and her thoughts flowed like static electricity. We can only take one step at a time. In short, first strengthen your previous thoughts. After the Ultron incident, get PIM particles, create a time machine, and leave this past time and space. Yimeng doesn't believe in the so-called fate and arrangement, she only believes in herself. It is impossible to wait for death like the original illusion. Sokovia. When the Avengers fighter jets arrived over the city surrounded by snow-capped mountains on 3 sides and located on a plain was in the alternation of night and dawn. The fighter plane was still in the air, so the rear cabin was opened. Banner, go find Natasha's place of detention and rescue her. Tony Stark, who was wearing a regular Mark Iron suit, stood on the fighter deck and commanded. No problem. Hulk. Dr. Banner nodded. Iron Man looked at Captain America holding the buckler again. Captain, you take other people to evacuate the residents in the city. It is best to let them leave Sokovia. Can Captain America nodded quickly, and glanced at Thor, Hawkeye Clinton, and the twins Pietro and Wanda respectively. The abilities of the super twins, a speedster, a telepathy, and demagogy, are the most useful for evacuating people. The Phantom Yaimong watched this scene quietly, and then looked at the lower deck of the fighter plane. In his original post-reunion era, the city of Sokovia had long since been destroyed. Everything is moving according to the original trajectory of Marvel history. If this continues, Sokovia will be destroyed, Quicksilver Pietro will sacrifice, and Ultron will come to an end. This is also what happened in the Avengers 2 movie timeline. Be careful. Imaginary Immortal suddenly patted Kuayin Pietro on the shoulder. Pietro was taken aback. He was still on guard against this guy, but he didn't expect to slap himself suddenly. Even if you get close to me, I won't. Quicksilver Pietro uttered a sentence subconsciously, and after noticing the puzzled expression of his sister Wanda, he choked back the words. Yi Meng didn't say much. He suddenly didn't want Kuayin Pietro to die here, and wanted to know what would happen after he changed the original history. He is not sure that the post-reunion era Marvel universe he was in before is the future time and space after he has already been involved in the changes. Iron Man turned his attention to the always silent Yi Meng. Vision, follow me to find Ultron, and you will block its network system. Yes. Imaginary Yi Meng nodded, which was exactly what he wanted. However, he not only wants to block Ultron's networking system, but also complements his own intelligent evolution with Ultron's underlying program. Stark, keep an eye on him. The girl Wanda suddenly added. I know. Iron Man nodded, then started the engine of the suit, and flew towards the city outside the cabin deck at high altitude. This little lady witch is really eyeing him. Vision Yaimong shook her head. There was no sign of the engine breaking, but she flew up out of thin air. The pale golden cloak was hunting, and she easily followed the Iron Man who was flying away in front of her. Yaimong and Iron Man flew side by side in the sky above the city, tracking the artificial intelligence signal, and flew towards the central city of Sokovia. Iron Man said while flying, later, I will go down and let Ultron out first, and you will come back to restrict its network connection so that it cannot escape from the machine body. Yes, Yi Meng had no objection to this. Iron Man glanced sideways at Yi Meng. Although he was wearing a steel helmet and his metal eye sockets were filled with white light, Yi Meng knew that the other party's mood must be extremely complicated at this time. Yi Meng said calmly, unfortunately, I am not Jarvis. I'm sorry too. Iron Man Tony Stark's words were casual and straightforward. However, although you are not Jarvis, I think you are credible enough. Is it because of the omen of the Mind Stone? Yi Meng asked. No, I really feel that way in my heart. Iron Man said complicatedly. For some reason, I always feel that you are somewhat familiar. Indeed should be familiar. Yaimong didn't know what to say. He was originally from Stark Industries when he was the incarnation of artificial intelligence, and later he was supplemented by many artificial intelligence programs of Stark Industries. If you have children, do you prefer a son or a daughter? Yi Meng asked suddenly. Iron Man frowned. What question was this Vision asking? He was not married yet. After thinking about it, he still responded, daughter. Then congratulations, Iron Man. Yi Meng didn't say much, and a petite figure of a little loli appeared in his mind. When he was an artificial intelligence teacher, he once told the other party that with the Marvel worldview, he might be able to see her dead father again. Unexpectedly, he met now, alive. The two streamers flew over the city together, approaching the central city. At this time, other members of the Avengers also began to evacuate the people in the city, so that the outer city was chaotic. Ultron is in the church in the center of the city, I'll go and lure it out first. Iron Man said suddenly. It's waiting for us, so don't bother, let's go together. Vision Yaimong spoke calmly, then suddenly accelerated, one step ahead of Iron Man, and violently smashed through the dome of the church and fell into it. Church interior. A 3-meter-tall vibration gold mechanical body stands there, activating a huge instrument connected to the ground. It hears the sound of the church dome breaking and looks up, and what is reflected in the red electronic eyes as the perfect vibration gold body exist. They really took everything from me, you. The Ultron robot has not finished speaking. Vision Yaimong flew down quickly, with both hands directly touching its mechanical head. The mechanical body of the Ultron robot suddenly froze and stopped in the air. Imagining Yimeng didn't talk nonsense with the other party, and directly pressed the vibrating gold palms against the mechanical head, and the mind gem between the brows and the artificial intelligence consciousness invaded together. ZZ. The red virtual static electricity poured into the brain terminal of the Ultron robot, took the lead in blocking and shutting down the other party's networking system, and continued to spread and read the intrusion towards the underlying intelligent program. As a special artificial intelligence, Achuang is indeed stronger than the artificial intelligence Yimeng has encountered before, but now he is not only the incarnation of artificial intelligence but also possesses the soul gem. The red virtual static turns into red gold, covering every corner of the Ultron terminal. Achuang didn't expect that Yimeng didn't even say a word, and directly made a move, which was a deadly move. Who is the villain? The Achuang robot suddenly pushed the phantom Iman away, but still clearly felt that a static signal connection locked itself, and the code program was being lost little by little. And its networking system has been blocked and restricted, there is no way to escape. It's going to die. Be devoured and digested. The Ultron robot laughed miserably, then rushed desperately to the equipment connected to the ground, and activated the device button with a slap. I want this Earth, all human beings, to be buried with me. The Ultron robot growled. The next moment, the entire city of Sokovia shook violently like an earthquake. Arc cracks began to crack from the edge of the city, and then suddenly raised upwards continuously. There were engines at the bottom that pushed most of the city high into the sky. At the same time, thousands of metal robots similar in appearance to steel battle suits flew out of the city, and rushed towards the evacuated residents and members of the Avengers Alliance. The battle in the city is about to start. Vision. Iron Man rushed in from the broken dome of the church, and what he saw was the Ultron robot lying on the huge equipment, which was already motionless, like a metal waste product that had lost its intelligence. Above the 3-meter low altitude of the church, Vision Yimeng closed her eyes, maintaining a suspension in the air, and the yellow gemstone glowed with a faint halo. It looked like it was digesting something. Vision. Iron Man called out again, but Vision Yimeng did not respond to this, and the artificial intelligence Friday, which was newly configured in the iron suit, responded, "Boss, Ultron is dead." So fast. Tony Stark was taken aback for a moment, and then asked, "What's going on in Sokovia now?" "The engine is installed at the bottom, and it is rising to high altitude. Once it crashes, it will cause a huge disaster on the surface of the Earth. In addition, the machine army created by Ultron is killing and wreaking havoc in the city." When Iron Man heard this, he became anxious, and called Vision again, and when there was no response, he started the engine and rushed out of the church. 10 minutes later, Yimeng, who seemed to be an offline phantom, suddenly opened her eyes, and a faint golden light flowed from the bottom of her eyes, echoing the warm yellow light of the soul gem on her forehead. "I see. Using Ultron's underlying program as the power to complement the incarnation of artificial intelligence," Yimeng muttered to herself and understood the power and uniqueness of Ultron as an artificial intelligence. Other artificial intelligences, even Jarvis, are at most only responsible for the daily operations of Stark Industries at the computing level. And Ultron was born to be able to control an entire Iron Legion, carry out various logical commands and emergency responses, and even protect the network security of the entire Earth world. That's because, at the beginning of Ultron's creation, Iron Man Tony Stark also used the power of the spiritual staff. If it hadn't become the Vision with the soul gem, Yimeng felt that as the previous artificial intelligence incarnation, it might not necessarily win. Of course, the result of defeating Ultron is also amazing. After digesting the rules and power of Ultron, Yimeng felt that as an artificial intelligence incarnation, it fits better with the soul gem, and the speed of calculation has tripled. With such an obvious improvement, Yimeng believes that even in the real world, the strengthening feedback of her own consciousness is amazing. Now, he is the well-deserved #1 artificial intelligence on Marvel Earth, no matter in the past or in the future. Yimeng is confident that if she returns to the previous Marvel time and space, she can easily crack the alien network system that invaded the headquarters of the Tianjian Bureau. "I just don't know which corner of the starry sky the Heavenly Sword Bureau battleship is hiding at the current past time point. Now, it seems that it is not the time to think about these things." Vision Yimeng looked outside the church, seeing a mess and fragments, the city rose to 3 kilometers, and most of the residents had evacuated to the edge of the city. But at this moment, a robot of the Ultron Legion flew towards this side, and while still in the air, it was hit by a cloud of scarlet light erupting at the door of the church, and it fell apart into countless parts and fell to the ground. Visionary Yi Meng was slightly stunned, looked up, and met the girl's clear eyes. "You are awake." The young girl Wanda's face turned pale, and she patted the dust on her knee-length skirt, and she didn't know how long she had been guarding outside. "Why are you here?" Yi Meng was surprised. "I came to see you." Wanda pursed her lips and said, "No matter what, you are considered a companion now, so I can't just watch you being beaten to death by a robot." "I'm not that fragile." Yi Meng smiled, at least it was a phantom vision, and it might not be damaged by a group of steel legions standing still. "Can you stop this thing?" Wanda looked towards the center of the church, the engine equipment connected to the ground to propel the city into space. Yi Meng extended his consciousness to invade the past, nodded quickly, and shook his head immediately. "Is it okay?" The girl Wanda was a little impatient and looked at him angrily. "The engine is one way, fixed power, I can turn it off, but if I stop the city will fall." Yi Meng explained. "Oh." Wanda couldn't hide her disappointment, and she was about to leave, but she exclaimed the next moment. It was Yaimeng, the phantom, who flew forward directly, stretched out her arms to hug her princess, and said without hesitation, "You are walking too slowly, I will take you away." Wanda's small face with heavy makeup was still a little indifferent, and she gave him a flat look, but she didn't refuse because of it. Yi Meng looked down at the girl in her arms. Naturally she wasn't thinking about other things, but was thinking about the possibility that this little witch might become the anchor of the current dream. He didn't deliberately stay away from or approach the characters in the dream world because of the connection between the past and the future, but just acted according to his inner thoughts. Yaimeng took Wanda to the high altitude of the city that was still rising. Looking down, one can see Aegis aircraft carriers and life-saving airships connected to the edge of the city, and the residents of the city have basically evacuated. At this time, imagining Yaimeng suddenly looked at a street in a fringe city. Being farsighted, he could see clearly what Wanda couldn't see. Someone else was fighting fiercely with the Iron Legion. It was Hawkeye Clinton dressed as an agent. The other party was hugging a girl resident, and a robot raised a gun not far away. At the same time, an invisible blurred figure rushed towards the two from the next street at high speed. "It's Quicksilver Pietro. The plot is here." Imaginary Yaimeng suddenly had a thought, and a wisp of virtual static electricity spread through the air at an extremely fast speed. So, seeing that it was too late for Quicksilver Pietro, he had to subconsciously use his body to block bullets for Hawkeye and the girl. Clank. Sparks fly. A robot rushed over as if suddenly out of control, and caught all the bullets. Kuayin Pietro was a little dumbfounded, and then turned around to finish the shooting robot at top speed. In situ, the remains of several robots soon appeared. It worked. Vision Yaimeng's eyes flickered, and he successfully saved a person who would die in history. If the Marvel universe he first dreamed of was the future that the present-past space-time eventually formed, instead of another similar parallel Marvel universe, how can this be explained now? In the previous historical records of Marvel Earth, Quicksilver Pietro also died in the Sokovia incident. "I don't believe that I will die in the hands of Thanos. If that is the established past history, then I will go and get rid of Thanos in advance." Vision Yaimeng hugged the girl Wanda, thinking calmly in the sky. Vision Yaimeng stood up and flew high in the sky, the air current swirling upwards. "We must find a way to stop the city of Sokovia." In his arms, the girl Wanda looked down at the large city rising to an altitude of 5,000 meters, and her indifferent face with heavy makeup could not help but reveal a ray of sadness. Yaimeng still knows that Sokovia was the home of her and her twin brother Kuayin Pietro before she was 10 years old. Yi dreamed for a while and said calmly, "We don't need to stop it." "What do you mean, eh?" Wanda seemed to think of something. Her bright pupils trembled slightly, and she looked up at his face. Imaginary Vision nodded and continued, "We have two choices now. One is to destroy Sokovia, lest it fall to destroy the Earth's surface. The other is to destroy the brake function of the large engine, so that Sokovia has been maintained upward, so that it flies out of space beyond the Earth. Let Sokovia fly away from the Earth like this." The young girl Wanda's slender body trembled, subconsciously wanting to refute, but soon she realized that the latter is indeed the best way. At least compared to the first method, the city of Sokovia will not only be completely destroyed, but will also be turned into countless gravels, endangering the safety of the remaining towns below. Then you do it. The young girl Wanda curled up a little, closed her eyes, her thick eyelashes were still trembling, and couldn't bear to look any further. Imaginary vision, Yaimeng thought, and a ray of invisible virtual current flowed out at a high speed, and instantly submerged into the engine braking system of Sokovia city below. Residents of the city were almost evacuated. In the city of Sokovia, the only remaining half-waste Ultron Legion robot crawled forward and pressed the button to shut down the large engine at the bottom. It's just that the large engine at the bottom didn't respond to this, and continued to maintain full power braking output eruption, pushing the city to continue flying towards an altitude above 10,000 meters. Vision Yaimeng hugged the girl Wanda to the side and watched Sokovia leave towards the pan-black space beyond the Earth, while the aircraft carrier and life-saving airship of S.H.I.E.L.D. led the residents out of the city one after another. Yaimeng raised her head, her golden pupils reflected the large city that was constantly rising and flying away. Sokovia, in the end, failed to keep it, and ended on Earth like the history of Marvel time and space. Perhaps one day, future human beings or themselves can recover this city in the vast space. This was just a thought of Yaimeng, and he didn't continue to think about it. He knew that the end of Sokovia and Ultron also represented the end of the events of the Ultron era. Avengers 2 is over. Wait until the next Avengers 3, when the cosmic super-villain Thanos strikes, plunders and collects 6 infinite gems, snaps the finger that flashes the origin of the event, and destroys the gem with the second snap. Then, in Avengers 4, the hero members of the Avengers who have not been ashes return to the past Marvel parallel universe through the quantum time machine, and regain 6 infinity gems to resurrect half of the creatures in the universe that disappeared in the flickering event. And finally, at the price of Iron Man's sacrifice, he snapped his second finger to end the Thanos fleet. After the above-mentioned historical events, before Yaimeng came, the time and space of Marvel that first dreamed, that is, the post-reunion era. There is exactly a 10-year difference between the present and the post-reunion era. Himself now being the original Heravision in the past, part of these established histories. Yaimeng didn't believe it, but he had just rescued a character who should have died in the history of Marvel, Huayan. He decided to look for PIM particles in the past few days, and then use future technology to recreate the quantum time machine from scratch, so as to return to the Marvel space-time that he first dreamed of. The girl's clear and cold words suddenly sounded, "My name is Wanda, Wanda Maximoff." Yaimeng looked down. The girl Wanda who was holding her had opened her eyes at some point, and looked up at the hometown of Sokovia, which was going away into outer space. His lips were also tightly pressed, and at only 18 years old, he already had an independence and strength that ordinary people did not have. This is self-introduction. My name is Vision. Yaimeng paused, then continued. I still have another name, Yaimeng. Yaimeng. The young girl Wanda looked at him puzzled. It's your nickname. Yaimeng nodded. He didn't know how long he would stay in this past Marvel time and space, so he needed a dream anchor. According to the previous situation, as long as he gets acquainted with the characters in the dream world and makes them remember him firmly, he can become an anchor. The existence of the dream anchor point allows Yaimeng to take the initiative to switch the dream consciousness to the dream world where the anchor point is located. Therefore, it is necessary to let others know that you are not a fake name. It's just, how does it feel? It's a bit like Kia Faith. Yaimeng thought about it. The dream anchor point is a bit similar to those legendary gods who need the power of faith to come to the world. Otherwise, try to build a religion in this Marvel time and space later, believers should also be used as dream anchors, right? Yaimeng's thinking flowed, and her brain deduced and operated like a supercomputer. It's really weird, do robots have nicknames? The girl Wanda thought to herself, the name Yaimeng is not bad, but if it is based on nicknames and nicknames, shouldn't it be called Little Dream, or something? Vision Yaimeng held the girl Wanda standing thousands of meters in the air, and the two watched Sokovia as a space carrier until it broke out of the Earth's atmosphere and disappeared into outer space. Call out. A golden red light quickly approached here, the metal palms and soles of the engine were facing down to keep the power in the air, and it stopped suddenly in the sky next to the two of them. Vision Yaimong looked sideways, and it was Morgan's biological father, Iron Man Tony Stark. Did you do it? Iron Man asked. Yaimong knew what the other party meant by shutting down the city's engine, making Sokovia completely fly away from the Earth. I asked to do this. Before Yi Meng could respond, the girl Wanda responded coldly. Iron Man glanced at her, white light came out of the metal eye sockets, and then looked at Yaimong again. It's done, very well. I'm ready, and together with Thor, we will destroy the entire city. This result is already very good. Iron Man Tony Stark sighed softly, and then pondered for a moment. You have performed very well in Sokovia. But, because of your background, there is no place to stay now, right? Yi Meng understood what Iron Man meant, and she was born as the cradle of regeneration, and Wanda was one of the experimenters of Hydra before. Either way, laissez-faire is extremely dangerous. I can live in the Avengers building. Yaimong replied. He happened to use the resources of the Avengers to secretly rebuild PIM particles and quantum time machines. It is estimated that they will not live for long. Pietro and I are fine. Wanda agreed directly on behalf of her twin brother. I will ask someone to prepare a nice room for you. Iron Man said in relief. Under the metal visor, his eyes looked at Yaimong and Wanda with some surprise. These two didn't quite match each other before. How do you feel now? The relationship between them is not bad. Chapter 91. The rest of the Avengers heroes who took part in the battle, mostly aboard SHIELD's space carrier and rescue airship, escorted the evacuated residents of Sokovia to their settlements before returning to New York. Vision Yaimong and Iron Man chose to fly back to New York directly. After confirming the eradication of artificial intelligence Ultron in the Avengers building, Yaimong went directly to the room arranged by Stark. Yi Meng pushed the door open and entered. It can be seen that there is a complete top-level residence with its own luxury floor-to-ceiling window living room, top-level shower room, balcony, utility room, and master room. It is on the third floor from the top floor of the Stark building. As for the twins, they should be arranged in the next-door residence later. As the essence of a robot, Vision Yaimong didn't need to rest much, so he closed the room casually, changed the Zhenjin battle suit into home clothes, and sat down on the leather sofa in the living room. It is estimated that Iron Man also knows that it is completely unfeasible to use artificial intelligence to monitor a vibrating intelligence transformed from artificial intelligence, so his attitude is much more relaxed, and he only provides a set of residences without any restrictions. Just like the original Hulk who joined the Avengers, there is only one ordinance against leaving New York City for now. Yi Meng still has a good impression of Iron Man, not only because he is Morgan's biological father. Iron Man is a smart enough person, and to some extent, he can do whatever he wants without breaking the rules. As long as he can protect the Earth and keep peace, he can do many bold and unreasonable actions. For example, the Hulk, who is still running wild from time to time, is recruited as a member of the Avengers, and even tried to build a high-level steel army to protect the Earth world. Certainly, he wants to do too much, and he will make mistakes and offend many people. In the end, Iron Man was not only killed by snapping his fingers, but also died of exhaustion. Imagining Yaimong confirmed that there was no monitor in the room. Zhenjin's body leaned against the back of the sofa, and reached out to touch his forehead and brow, and the complete yellow gemstone glowed with a faint halo. Until then, he finally had the time to thoroughly examine and understand the infinity gem set on his body. Yi Meng closed her eyes and carefully detected the sensor. This physical soul gem is closely connected with the terminal nerves of the brain in the cradle of regeneration, and has become part of the incarnation of one's current dream illusion, so once it is taken off, it is likely to die because of it. The technology of the country of Wakanda may allow him to remove this gem. But Yaimong needs to connect with the incarnation of the dream through the soul gem, so as to borrow the power of the complete soul gem to strengthen his own consciousness of reality and control the invading power of Doomsday. After all, the Mind Stone is the mind prefix of the Infinity Stone, and its main ability is to perceive, amplify, tamper, and empower the mind and spirit of the universe. Therefore, the soul gem must remain in one's own body, and it is even better to occupy it forever in the Marvel dream. However, what made Yaimong a little concerned was, the complete soul gem inlaid between the forehead and eyebrows glowed faintly, and beside it, there was a ray of broken yellow light lingering. That's a shard of the Mind Stone. from a tiny fraction of the Mind Stone that was destroyed 10 years later. Different from the complete physical Mind Gem, this fragment of the Mind Gem is like a real spiritual creation, fused with Yimeng's artificial intelligence consciousness. So, now I have two soul gems. A complete physical side, a broken soul. Yimeng was thinking about the difference between the two, when suddenly, he noticed that everything around him was still. Outside the Avengers building, the bustling streets of modern New York, pedestrians and commercial streets are also at a standstill. This dreamland of the Marvel Universe in the past ushers in a time stop. Just like last time, Yimeng understood that her current dream consciousness was drawn by the Doomsday DC dream, which was a strong source of power. This time, Yimeng didn't have any resistance. After Marvel received the blessing of the Soul Gem, he was also planning to return to the DC Dreamland to confirm the status of the Doomsday incarnation. The consciousness of falling into a dream exited the dreamland of the Marvel Universe, and Yimeng did not show any signs of waking up and returning to the real world, so she was dragged by another dreamland. Obviously, even if you get the complete Mind Gem in the Marvel Dreamland, the DC Dreamland Doomsday is still more powerful, and its influence on the consciousness of reality is unmatched by other dreams. Drop. Yimeng suddenly opened her eyes from the darkness, and she has turned into a 3-meter gray monster with bone spurs, wearing a sturdy black Superman suit, standing on a suspended mountain in the sea of the Earth's center in the previous DC Dream universe. Time in this paused DC Dreamland begins to flow again. The colorful crystals on the dome continued to cast large swaths of sun rays, shining on the tall monster body of Yimeng, the ancient ruined day, and the black battlesuit was of great help in absorbing the sun's rays. Before, the incarnation of Doomsday was on the verge of getting out of control, switching from the DC Dream to the Marvel Dream. Now, come back again. The desire to destroy once again impacted Yimeng's will, but Yimeng's dream consciousness, after the feedback from Marvel Dreamland, was already stronger than last time. And, first, a shattered yellow light emerged from the brow bone of Doomsday, and then the hazy phantom of a gemstone also appeared. The will to destroy was dissipated by the disintegration of large areas, and it was difficult to get close to the edge of human sanity sheltered by the phantom of gemstones and broken yellow lights, making the eyes of the ancient Ruinian Yimeng clear. It really worked. Yimeng's eyes widened in surprise, and she clenched her fists so hard that the golden-red destruction lightning surged. He could feel that this time compared to the last time, it was the first time to control the incarnation of the ancient Doomsday in a real sense. The only pity is that it cannot be controlled for a long time. Yimeng touched the forehead of Doom's own exoskeleton. The gem phantom and gem fragments did completely protect the rational consciousness, but the will to destroy was still endlessly regenerating. Just like Doomsday's willpower to destroy, and the power of the Mind Gem, compete with each other across a dream world. And the present where I exist is the DC Dreamland where Doomsday is located, and it is the home field of Doomsday, so the suppression of the Mind Stone is still only temporary and has not reached a permanent balance. This temporary fragile balance still needs to be constantly switched between Marvel and DC dreams to achieve. Once awakened in reality, the balance will also be broken. Unless the avatars in the Marvel Universe can go a step further than the spiritual strength of the mind holding the Mind Gem and achieve true balance. At least you're on the right path, aren't you? Yimeng exhaled lightly, forming a fiery hurricane. He can't wake up from the dream without completely and permanently controlling the power of the ancient Doomsday in his dream and solving the root cause of his loss of control. The moment he woke up in reality was the moment when Superman was born on Doomsday. In the dreamland of the DC universe, the sea is hidden in the center of the earth, above the suspended mountains. Now, as the ancient destruction day, let's really touch and explore this DC dream. Yimeng knows that, unlike passive and out-of-control sinking, actively exploring the dream universe has positive feedback on reality itself. Even if you are familiar with controlling power in the dream, you can directly use the ability of dream incarnation in the real world in the future. Everything possessed by the dream avatar will be like a projection, constantly fed back to the reality itself, enriching the real self. The 3-meter-high bone spur had red flames in his eyes, but he was clear and rational. He squatted down slightly and was about to jump down habitually, when he suddenly thought of something. The bone spur clenched his right hand into a fist and pressed it to the ground. It closed its eyes, adjusted its breathing, opened it again, and looked into the distance. Hurrah! The top of the mountain range that was crushed and cracked under the ancient destroyer Yaimong, countless large and small gravels were suspended under the leadership of the invisible force, and because the invisible force was not stable and too strong, they collapsed into powder one after another. A suspended mountain range trembles and vibrates in the sky above the hidden sea in the center of the earth. Then, the next moment, a group of storms exploded layer upon layer from the top of the mountain range, and there was a 3-meter bone spur wearing a black Superman suit, as before, rushing to the far end, but this time there was no sign of falling in the air, but continued at a very high speed rush to the farther high altitude of the Tibetan Sea. The sound barrier was quickly broken. The bone spurs rushed higher and higher, farther and farther, and never fell to the ground. Hidden sea in the center of the earth, the island where the artifact of Poseidon's trident was stored before. On the edge of the island beach, an alien spaceship is moored, and the hatch remains open. Atlana, the quasi-queen of Atlantis, comforted the baby and put her to sleep in the cabin of the spaceship. After hearing no movement outside, she cautiously walked out of the cabin door. She didn't want to escape, and she didn't have the confidence to escape, but she wanted to come out to find something to eat. Atlanta dived into the shallow sea in front of the island's beach, and with the extreme speed of the underwater people, she quickly broke out of the sea again and walked out, with 2 plump ancient sea fish with silver scales in her hands. She couldn't help but look towards the side of the beach, where a golden trident was randomly stranded. That is enough to make the entire underwater world go crazy. I don't know how many people have been pursuing it for thousands of years. It is the sacred artifact of the Atlantis Empire and the Poseidon Trident artifact of the Empire's authority. As a result, those who are now treated as trophies are randomly thrown on the ground. Atlanta sighed secretly. Hearing the sound of breaking the sound barrier from the other end of the Tibetan Sea, Atlanta looked back in astonishment, but after seeing the high-altitude scene, the 2 ancient sea fish fell to the ground directly. I see. A small black speck flew from the high altitude of the far end of the Tibetan Sea, and passed between several suspended mountains. As it approached, the visible volume continued to grow, and soon it was clearly seen that it was a black figure with bony spurs. It is him. Atlanta's still wet body froze and trembled violently, she couldn't believe her eyes. What did she see? The existence that was so powerful that even the old gods couldn't defeat it was flying. That's right, flying in the air. Atlanta didn't dare to move and stood on the beach, watching helplessly as the bony spurs wore a cloak, set off a storm, rushed across the sea, and descended to the front of the beach where she was. Hoo-hoo, the landing is obviously much more proficient than when he first started. Destruction Day Yaimong slowed down and stopped, pushing the sand out. Flying is one of the basic abilities of Kryptonians after receiving solar radiation. As an extreme creation of Kryptonian genes, the ancient Doomsday has always been not incapable of flying, but it is unnecessary to fly. Curve jumps can replace flying, and it is far more destructive than flying. Before that, Yaimong was basically running out of control, and as Doomsday, he followed the original behavior. Until now, Yaimong has begun to control the Doomsday avatar with enough sense. Most importantly, he wants to fly and believes he can fly. Then, the extreme genes in the ancient Doom Son's body supported him to achieve what he wanted. After all, flying is the instinct of Kryptonian genes. In front, eyes burning with red flames looked down. Atlanta shivered and covered her chest, not daring to take a breath. Facing that fiery red gaze, she felt that she would be roasted like a fish at any moment. But at this moment, the bony spur opened the corner of his mouth, and uttered a hoarse and low-pitched human-like speech. Come in. Ah, Atlanta was taken aback, staring blankly at the existence of the bone spur. Yaimong, the ancient Destruction Day, ignored her and walked straight towards the Kryptonian spacecraft. Atlanta continued to freeze in place, and quickly reacted to keep up with the pace. Inside the Kryptonian spacecraft, the smart lights come on one after another. Yaimong walked into the spaceship and saw the son of Krypton sleeping in a small dormant cabin, then continued to the inner driving hall of the Kryptonian spaceship and sat directly on the driver's seat. The driver's seat was already estimated to be the size of a Kryptonian's armor, but it still seemed crowded, and the body of Yaimong, who was sitting on the ruined day, was directly stretched out. Fortunately, the quality of the metal driver's seat of the Kryptonian civilization is still good, and it holds up. Atlanta followed with difficulty into the main hall. Even though the ancient Doomsday was sitting, she was still a head shorter than him, and looked down at her feet without daring to look directly. The 3-meter bone spur looked at her, and said in a low voice, "Atlanta, the royal family of Atlantis." "You, how do you know?" Atlanta was shocked. She said her name before, but she didn't mention any information about Atlantis and the royal family. Yi Meng naturally knew it, and also knew that the other party was the mother of Aquaman, one of the heroes of the DC Justice League. It's just that, at the current time of DC, Gotham doesn't even have Batman, and naturally there is no so-called Justice League. Seeing that Yi Meng didn't respond, Atlanta didn't dare to continue asking, and said in fear, "This." She paused, and didn't know how to describe Yi Meng at the moment, so she could only grit her teeth and say, "Sir, why did you arrest me? Is it because I belong to the royal family of Atlantis?" Sensing the scorching red gaze, Atlanta lowered her head even more, feeling anxious in her heart, worried that the other party would attack the Undersea Empire. Yi Meng looked at the other party, wanting to show this lady that you think too much. He didn't say anything, he just cast his eyes on the sleeping cabin outside the corridor. "Hey," Atlanta turned her head, glanced at the small hibernation cabin over there, and then looked down at her chest, doubting her life. Is it just for this reason? After all, she is also the quasi-queen of Atlantis. Atlanta's heart was in a mess, and she thought about dying, so she simply asked in one go, Can you let me go out of here?" Yes, Yi Meng, the ancient destroyer, nodded, but did not force the other party to stay. Really? Atlanta doubted her ears for a moment, and seeing the existence of the tall bony spurs, she didn't say anything, so she gritted her teeth, turned around and rushed out of the spaceship. A pair of red flame eyes watched her leaving back without any movement. Along the corridor of the Kryptonian spacecraft, the young white-haired woman ran excitedly towards the outside of the Kryptonian spacecraft, but her pace became slower and slower. Can you really leave here? Atlanta couldn't help thinking suddenly. That bone spur existed, wouldn't it kill herself when she walked out of the spaceship door? Also, what about the baby left here alone after he left? Also, can I escape from the vortex under the sea hidden in the center of the earth? Atlanta looked at the hatch that was getting closer and closer, with more and more reasons in her heart, and suddenly realized that she didn't want to leave here. It's not that she's worried about the revenge of the bone spur, but that it might be the best result for her to stay here. As the quasi-queen of Atlantis, once she goes out, she will definitely be captured by the Undersea Kingdom and become a victim of the royal marriage. Maybe, it will also implicate his own son, Arthur, who is away. But now, due to the interference of the bone spur, people in the outside world should mistakenly think that they are dead. Atlanta finally reached the end of the corridor, but stopped at the door of the hatch, did not continue to move forward, and looked blankly at the hidden sea in the center of the earth outside. 10 seconds later, the white-haired young woman turned her head, made a decision, and re-entered the spaceship. Returning to the dark and cold main hall of the spaceship again, Atlanta bit her lips tightly, looking at the existence still sitting in the driver's seat, the red flames in her eyes surged and destroyed. I can stay and take care of that baby. Atlanta gritted her teeth as if she was afraid of regretting herself again. Ruining Yi Meng nodded, but didn't express much about it. It's just that, in Atlanta's eyes, her heart was shocked, and she couldn't help but continue to make up her mind. Did this person even predict that she would come back? I just want to know one question. Atlanta took a deep breath and asked courageously, where did the baby come from? Why? You brought him with you. This is the biggest question she has always had. The existence of an unimaginably powerful bone spur monster with a baby that was suspected to be born from an alien is indeed too strange. The ancient ruined Dai Yi dreamed about it, and responded hoarsely and lowly, maybe he can kill me. What? Atlanta was shocked, feeling that she couldn't keep up with the brain circuit of the bone spur. But this is indeed Yi Meng's original purpose as Doomsday, with the son of Krypton by his side. What I thought before was, one is to serve as the anchor point of human nature for the relationship of the same race. The second is to prevent oneself from completely losing control and sinking into a death insurance in the DC dream. Perhaps only Superman can kill the Doomsday in the dream. Today, the ancient idea of destroying the iridium remains the same. He is only temporarily controlling the ancient day of destruction, and in the future, he will still need enough strong players from the DC universe to vent his desire for destruction. Superman is a strong potential stock worth cultivating. As Doomsday, Yaimong doesn't need partners or subordinates, only enemies. After that, Atlanta took the son of Krypton and lived on the Krypton spacecraft hidden in the sea in the center of the Earth. To Atlanta's secret relief, the Bone Spurs did not live together in the spaceship, and have been staying outside since that day. He often stands on the beach as if basking in the sun, and from time to time flies to the depths of the hidden sea in the center of the Earth, or reaches the outside world from the vortex under the sea, and then continues to return to the beach to bask in the sun that day. That's it. After a month, Atlanta has become accustomed to it, and sometimes she will worry about it when she sees whether the Bone Spurs exist in the hidden sea. Of course, it is worried about some existence in the outside world. What made Atlanta very distressed was that every time the baby she took care of was brought out of the spaceship, not only was she not afraid when she saw the Bone Spurs, but she showed a happy smile, and her small eyes seemed to have longing lights. This is not right. It's so wrong. Atlanta has decided to raise this alien child with great potential to become the king of the land. Thus, perhaps one day, this child will overthrow the existence of Bone Spurs, and promote the connection and cooperation between the Earth's land and the seabed. A strange combination of monsters, young women, and babies, 1 month after officially settling in the Tibetan Sea in the center of the Earth. On this day, Atlanta carried the baby named Clark out of the cabin as usual. Bathed in the sun, the several-month-old baby suddenly pursed his mouth inarticulately, raised his head vigorously and looked towards the beach side of the island, and waved his fingers vigorously towards the beach with his white and tender hands. Atlanta didn't need to look to know that the Bone Spur monster must be basking in the sun on the beach of the outer island again. She glanced over there, and quickly froze again. I see. On the beach of the island in the Tibetan Sea, under the sunlight of the geocentric dome. A 2.5-meter tall Bone Spur humanoid monster stood there, still wearing a black tight-fitting cloak. The overall body showed a muscular curve that seemed to be poured by molten iron. There was an S-marked totem symbolizing hope on its strong chest. The Bone Spur body that was originally bloated and strong like a hill has become significantly smaller. This is shrunk. Atlanta's heart was beating violently suddenly. Startled by the thought of offending her, she took a few steps back and watched secretly. I read it right, it has indeed shrunk a circle. Of course this is compared to the previous strong to bloated huge physique. Although it still looks tall and intimidating now, but the slim figure is close to the golden ratio, plus the perfect muscle curve displayed by the battle suit. If you don't look at the head, ignore the ferocious Bone Spurs, the body covered by the black tights is like a perfect sculpture. Although the head is still bald, it is far less terrifying than before. His face is like a white bone mask, only the red flames of destruction still dance in his eyes. Less out of control, more sacred. There is less ferocity, but more domineering. Only the astonishing aura that radiates out is in essence, like a halo, and if it doesn't drop, it will become stronger. Even if Atlanta looked at it from a distance, she could feel the blood of the royal family of Atlantis trembling in her body, and the genes deep in her body were in fear, and her slender legs under her skirt trembled, almost kneeling on the ground. This is so powerful that it overrides everything, but also possesses extraordinary wisdom. Atlanta felt that calling the other party a monster in her heart was an insult to herself. If this kind of existence was a monster, it would be worse than a fish in water. Those existences of the old gods can't be compared with them at all. God, demon. Based on her own experience, Atlanta thought of several titles but couldn't match her current existence, so she could only watch from afar in awe and trembling. He, and only he, is unique. Yi Meng, the incarnation of the ancient Doomsday, lowered her eyes, and raised her bony palms that seemed to be covered with exoskeletons. On the way to regain sanity and control the loss of control. The ancient Doomsday gene, as if also under the interference of independent reason and the Kryptonian code, began to evolve and transform towards the side he thought was good. This kind of change is not extreme, so it is slow, but sufficiently controllable. Reality has been invaded, and he looks more and more like Doomsday. And the current dream of the ancient ruined day, under the anti-invasion, began to look more and more like reality itself. Will one day, the ancient ruined day be exactly the same as him in reality? And by that time, in reality, he will also control all the power of Doomsday. The ancient ruining day. Yaimeng didn't think too much. The red flames of destruction surging in his eyes became stronger and stronger, and the phantom and broken glow of the yellow gemstone between his eyebrows became dimmer. It is already a miracle to maintain sanity with the ancient day of destruction and spend a month in the dreamland of the DC universe. And such a miracle, in addition to the projected influence of Marvel's dream incarnation power, also has its own exploration results in the DC universe dream. Think here. Yaimeng, the ancient destroyer, stretched out his hand and lifted the golden trident slanted on the beach. He took off on the spot, flew towards the high altitude of the Tibetan Sea in the center of the earth, broke through the sound barrier halfway, and then continued to dive down into the Tibetan Sea in the center of the earth. The surface of the sea broke open, and the water splashed tens of meters high, and the supreme figure symbolizing destruction disappeared into the underwater vortex leading to the outside world. Atlanta trembled as she held the Kryptonian baby. That supreme being obviously went out to the outside world, but this time he went out and brought the Poseidon artifact as a weapon. Do they have such a powerful existence on Earth? The outside world, DC Earth, inside a cave on an uninhabited deserted island. A small bonfire was crackling in the depths of the cave, and beside the bonfire, an old man with gray temples sat on a flat stone. The old man was wearing a tattered fisherman's sackcloth. His cheeks were thin and haggard and slightly sunken, his wrinkled eye sockets were also surrounded by black circles, and his eyes were cloudy and lifeless, reflecting the flames. It is estimated that even if Wonder Woman comes here again, I can't even recognize him. This is one of the ancient Greek gods who have lived from the age of the gods to the present modern civilization, and their divine power and ability are still powerful. Poseidon, the god of the sea. After all, compared to a month ago, the old sea god who showed his majesty, high spirits, and youthful appearance, now the old man has completely become a fisherman who has truly entered his old age. Even his bare feet trembled slightly as he stepped on the gravel in the cave. At this time, outside the cave, there was a sound of a sonic boom in the air, as if something had reached the desert island from a distance and stopped. Poseidon's legs immediately trembled even more. He is coming. Here we go again. The eyes of Poseidon, the god of the sea, showed despair. He no longer remembers how many times he was found this month. Thanks to being one of the old gods, self-healing and physical recovery are inhuman. No, this is the real torture. No matter where he fled, he would be found by the other party, and no matter how he resisted and fought, he would end up on the verge of death. It was as if the other party was playing with himself as a weak prey. Sea god Poseidon wants to be angry and growls to fight back. He also has the honor and dignity of being one of the top old gods. But after a month, facing that unbelievably powerful existence, all confidence were shattered and ravaged. Then, at this moment Poseidon was facing a crisis, and he didn't even have the courage to stand up again and run away. Destroy it, end it. Laugh. The mountain of the island where the cave was located trembled suddenly, and a stream of metal pierced through the mountain, more than half submerged in the gravel ground next to the campfire in the cave. Poseidon's turbid pupils shrank. It was a golden trident. It is his divine weapon, surpassing the supreme authority that has ruled the Earth's oceans for thousands of years. Seeing this trident weapon reminds me of the demeanor of being the pinnacle god of the Earth back then. You forced me. Poseidon's eyes burst into light, and his aged and decayed body burst out with fighting spirit and divine power. He stretched out his hand to hold the trident, and streaks of golden divine power surged out from the cave. Come on. The sea god Poseidon gritted his teeth, his legs shook unavoidably, and stepped out of the cave with tears in his eyes. Today, November 10, 1980, at 10:03 in the afternoon. Meteorological satellites have detected that a severe storm suddenly appeared in the western hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean, and the local area was accompanied by a large tsunami. Please take emergency evacuation with ships in the local area and nearby waters. Quote. Weather stations around the Atlantic coast issued emergency evacuation messages. Meanwhile, the depths of the ocean. Rumble. Thick black clouds covered the sky and the sun, and thunderbolts fell from the clouds from time to time, hitting the turbulent sea below, and the waves surged towards the sky. The thunder is roaring, the waves are hissing. The depths of the ocean seem like apocalypse, and this is just the aftermath of the battle. The sea exploded. The two existences fought from the sky to the deep sea, and every encounter was accompanied by catastrophe. The old sea god held the Poseidon trident artifact, and as the energy ripples of the golden divine power spread, he set off giant tsunamis and swept away, powerful enough to wipe out countless coastal towns. But the next moment, several giant tsunamis were pierced by a figure at the same time, and the waves exploded. Sea god ahead. The gray-white bone spur human-shaped monster flew extremely fast in the air, like an invisible force field spread out on its body, making it impossible for the seawater to approach within 3 meters, during which golden red lightning energy burst out one after another. Yaimong, the ancient destroyer, stood in the seawater and flew forward. The seawater along the way was completely washed away, and continued to punch. This punch hit the golden trident artifact set up by the sea god Poseidon. There is no light effect of divine energy, only the end of the fist infused with pure power falls. The body of the trident artifact vibrates violently like a mournful cry, and the golden divine energy flowing on the body collapses and fades layer by layer. Just a punch. The hurricane broke out and the shock waves set off. The hands of Poseidon, the sea god Poseidon, was overflowing with blood, and he could hardly hold the trembling artifact. He even flew upside down into the deep sea with his trident, rushing to the bottom of the sea below 10,000 meters. Cough cough. Poseidon, the god of the sea, stood at the bottom of the 10,000-meter seabed. His hand holding the weapon was trembling, and he kept coughing up blood into the seawater. The previously revived fighting spirit and divine power were gone. After all, fighting against an existence that can never be defeated, or even breaks the defense, even the gods will feel desperate. In particular, although the opponent's physique has shrunk with a punch, he is undoubtedly stronger than before, regardless of strength or skill control. Poseidon, the god of the sea, could sense that the other party was obviously releasing water. This is, for fear of accidentally killing him. Poseidon, the god of the sea, let out a miserable laugh, looked up at the existence that broke through the water extremely quickly and dived into the 10,000-meter deep sea, coughed up blood and roared, "This one blow will decide the outcome. I will use my strongest strength. One strike. No matter what, he still has the bottom line and backbone of the old god." Call. The sea water opened up, and the bony spur monster wearing a black Superman's battle suit had its own force field, like a hovering high above the 10,000-meter deep sea area, looking down at Poseidon, the god of the sea, with burning eyes like red flames. Winter. Okay. Yaimong, the ancient destroying day, suddenly uttered a human voice. Red flames leapt in his eyes, current surged to his right arm, and then he continued to rush down and swung his bony right fist. Come. Poseidon, the god of the sea, stood on the bottom of the 10,000-meter deep sea. Powerful divine power surged from his old and decayed body, and rushed into the trident held tightly in both hands, stabbing towards the sea ahead with all his strength. Clang. The gray-white bone spur's right fist swung forward like lightning, with its own shock wave, force field, and destructive lightning energy lingering. Unstoppable, it directly shook the tip of the trident's stabbing. Poseidon's pupils froze. The fist end of the bone spur was like a flash of lightning and streamer, smashing the released divine energy together, and the fist end continued to fall on the body without hindrance. Time seemed to stop at this moment. The light in Poseidon's eyes dimmed, and his cloudy eyes showed relief. As an old god, he seemed to be honorable to die in battle with such an existence. But if he could do it all over again, he wouldn't jump out like hell again. The surface of the ocean above 10,000 meters is like dropping a ton of depth charges into the bottom of the sea, causing a mass of reddish waves to explode. Then, the thundercloud storm and rough tide gradually subsided. Boo! Yaimong, the ancient day of destruction, flew out of the sea holding the golden trident, without any sea water on her body. Poseidon, the god of the sea, walked peacefully. Yi Meng felt deeply sorry for this, but she also knew that Poseidon, the sea god, was already begging for death in the end, so he punched with all his strength to satisfy the opponent. There are not many old gods in the current DC Earth, and it is not easy to find another one, especially one that can let him vent a little. Although in a sane state, Doomsday is Doomsday, and as an ancient Doomsday, Yaimong is still eager to fight. Especially, the battle that can let oneself let go to fight. This kind of militancy derived from genes is benign, just like the absolutely rational artificial intelligence, the destruction and fighting that went properly can allow Yaimong to better control the incarnation of Doomsday. This is also a disguised exploration of the dreamland of the DC universe. That's right, unlike the artificial intelligence incarnation of Marvel's Cosmic Dream, as the ancient Doomsday, you don't need to acquire any foreign objects, and your own existence has infinite and unlimited evolutionary potential. You only need to meet opponents or encounters who can develop this potential. The opponent of Doomsday will always be himself. Of course, Poseidon, the god of the sea, has not yet reached the level where Yaimong can stimulate his potential, and has only reached the stage of daily warm-up. It's just that after mastering superhuman flight and biological force field, there are certain skills in fighting compared to before. Unfortunately, I have to find another opponent again. Yaimong, the ancient day of destruction, flew into the thunder cloud at a very high speed, and soon the thunder cloud was also torn open. Tread. With beautiful and smooth long black hair and an unrestrained shawl, a perfect woman in a red armor battle skirt held a battle shield and carried a long sword on her back, and landed on the desert island lightly with a golden invisible lasso. Wonder Woman lowered her eyes, watching in a daze as an old man's body was washed up by the crashing waves. The opponent's eyes were wide open, but his face was relieved and serene. There was a hole in his chest that ran through his back. The muscles and bones outside the hole were all shattered. Even Sea God can't stop him. Wonder Woman sighed softly, lowered her tall, graceful and vigorous body, and reached out to caress the old man's open eyes. Poseidon was truly killed in the ocean. If I meet him, I'm afraid I will die too. Wonder Woman's expression was in a trance, but she was determined again, and she clenched her battle shield tightly without being timid. Without a real defeat, how could it be possible to admit defeat? Even if you are defeated, as long as you don't die, there is a possibility of victory. At this time, Paradise Island was shrouded in a magical barrier. Since the age of the gods, the Amazons, a fighting nation that cooperated with the ancient Greek gods, have thrived here, and it is also the hometown of Wonder Woman. Suddenly, the peace here was broken, and all the Amazons looked up to the sky above Paradise Island in astonishment. On this day, the Amazons recalled the fear of being unable to overcome their strength and the humiliation of being imprisoned on Paradise Island. Paradise Island. This is the island sheltered by the divine power of Zeus. It is truly isolated from the world. Once you leave the island, you will not be able to find it. It is the last piece of pure land on earth. But now, the peace of thousands of years was broken again. The top of the enchantment maintained by Zeus' divine power was forcibly broken, and then a huge black and terrifying bone spur figure broke in. All the Amazons raised their heads in amazement and looked at the sky. The next moment, the entire Paradise Island resounded with warning horns and bells. Antiope, Queen Hippolyta of Paradise Island, with a crown on her head and a cloak, a bow and arrow on her back, and a long sword in her hand, shouted loudly and rushed out of the royal palace in the center of the island. There is no doubt that the queen's demeanor is full. Antiope, a female general with bronze muscles, stepped forward resolutely from the gate of the palace, and shouted in a deep voice, "I am here. All Amazon soldiers, follow me and fight against the queen." "Yes, General." Immediately, hundreds of well-trained Amazon soldiers, all female, rushed out together with Queen Hippolyta and General Antiope. When they rode fast horses and rushed to the plain below the town at an extremely fast speed, they looked up and saw that it was a bone spur monster that broke into Paradise Island. The bone spur monster was wearing a black tight-fitting cloak and was suspended at a height of 100 meters above Paradise Island, looking down at the island area with its red flame eyes. The invisible destructive aura made everyone breathless. "Intruders, kill without mercy." Queen Hippolyta shouted with sharp eyes, and swung the sword forward with her right hand. The next moment, the Amazon army either drew their bows or threw them. With the sound of breaking wind, countless iron arrows and spears rushed towards the bone spur monster at a height of 100 meters. Although they are only very primitive cold weapons, in the hands of the Amazon with extraordinary strength and physique, these iron arrows and spears are extremely fast. Even if they fly 100 meters, they still have a strong force, without any sign of deviation or weakness. If placed in the outside world, I believe no one would dare to question whether these iron arrows can penetrate the wall, and whether the thrown spear can penetrate the iron plate. But, in the next scene, all the Amazon fighters on the field, including the queen and the general, froze collectively. Shish! Seeing that the dense iron arrows and spears were about to impale the bone spur monster into a hedgehog, they all stopped in the air under the powerful and invisible mysterious force within 3 meters of the bone spur monster's body. The iron arrows and spears lost their strength and power, and they all stopped by the side, not even touching the battle clothes. There was no sound at the Paradise Island scene, and all the Amazons watched this scene in the sky in disbelief. 100 meters high, the ancient destroyer De Yaimang looked down at the entire Paradise Island, and saw through the Amazon queen, including the female warriors, as well as the blood genes under the clothes with the perspective eyes. After just a glance, he continued to look at other island areas without interest. Amazons, too weak. At best, it is only stronger than humans, so weak that it doesn't even have the desire to destroy. Yi Meng didn't even have any defense just now, but the biological force field overflowed so much that it blocked all the attacks. Visible, outside the surface of Yaimang, the ancient ruined day, an invisible force lingered and stretched outward. This is the biological force field that he awakened with flying after he truly maintained his sanity as the ancient Doomsday. The biological force field is the fusion and application of the Kryptonian gene's own power and energy. It can be used to assist in attack, or to defend, or even to defend against things other than oneself. For example, Superman has a biological force field, so he can wrap and lift a large Boeing aircraft with a force field, keeping the entire aircraft intact. The people of the Motherland do not have a biological force field. Once they carry a large aircraft with both hands, they will directly penetrate the aircraft. It's just that, as the ancient day of destruction, the biological force field derived from Yaimang's awakening is not quite the same as Superman's. ZZ. Yaimang stood in the sky without any movement. The invisible shield-like biological force field was like a natural energy conversion field, absorbing and reversing the power from the iron arrows and spears into the energy of its own force field. The next moment, a group of red ball-shaped lightning swept out and exploded, like a small lightning sun, destroying all the iron arrows and spears, and the lightning shock wave continued to impact and wreak havoc. Defense. Queen Hippolyta and General Antiope shrank their pupils and shouted in unison. The other Amazon warriors also squatted down with numb scalps, surrounded the queen, and lifted the metal round shield above their heads. Crash! Hundreds of Amazon warriors on the plain were turned on their backs, and all were blown away by the scorching and violent energy waves, just like harvesting fallen wheat with a scythe in autumn. Too weak. The ancient destruction of Yaimang was not considered a real attack, but the energy conversion and rebound of the biological force field made Paradise Island lose its ability to fight. His target, however, was not the Amazons in the first place. As the only complete site left over from the era of the Greek gods, Paradise Island, apart from some artifacts from the Greek era, there is another item that interests him. The sound barrier burst. The bone spur monster turned into a stream of black light and rushed towards the other end of Paradise Island town. On the chaotic plain, as if plowed by a bulldozer, howling came and went. Queen, are you all right? Antiope threw away the red-hot metal shield in his hand, and stepped forward to help Queen Hippolyta, whose crown had fallen off. It's okay, where did it go? Queen Hippolyta shook her head, looking anxiously at the sky where the bone spur monster had disappeared, with a look of horror and shock remaining in her eyes. Such a power is hard to see even in the age of the gods. Antiope said bitterly, it seems that I have passed the temple on the cliff. What? Queen Hippolyta was struck by lightning. It couldn't have come from that alien force. On Paradise Island, on the cliff at the other end of the town, there is a round closed castle building. Boom. The air is stirring. The bony spur monster in the black battle suit swooped down at an unabated speed, crashed into the metal dome in the middle of the castle temple, and landed heavily on the high platform inside the center with both feet. The hard and thick stone slabs of the high platform cracked and shattered. There was a storm blowing dust waves outside, and the ancient ruined De Yaimang raised her eyes, and her red eyes fell on the stone pillars of the high platform, where a mysterious cube was placed. The cube is made of unknown material, about twice the size of a basketball, and covered with a thick layer of dust. It has obviously been stored here for a long time. Yi Meng's eyes were filled with red flames. This is the Mother Box. Originated from the apocalypse of the DC universe, tens of thousands of years ago, the Dark King Darkseid struck, trying to reshape and control the Earth with the Mother Box. As a result, Darkseid was repelled by the Earth's native and alien forces, and the Mother Box was left behind. I remember that there were 3 Mother Boxes, which were kept and suppressed by the Amazons, the Human Kingdom, and Atlantis, who participated in the joint operations at that time. And the Mother Box kept by the Amazons is stored here at this time. The Bone Spur monster directly took the Mother Box in his hand, played with it, and showed a bright and friendly smile. "Way, are you there? I apply for a dialogue with Apocalypse." Quote, Paradise Island, Ancient Temple. As one of the Holy Trinity, the Mother Box has been sealed here for tens of thousands of years. The Little Master from Apocalypse was repelled. After being kept in the Mother Box of the current Paradise Island, it began a long period of autonomous dormancy, dormant and waiting for the king to come again. Until this day, the Mother Box was suddenly reawakened by a loud sound that shook the air. At the moment of being awakened, the Mother Box will follow the intelligent program to try to send a positioning message to the outer space, so that the subordinate forces of Apocalypse who are exploring outside can capture the message, and finally transmit this positioning message to the Supreme Dark King. But when it detects the existence of the handheld wake-up itself, as the Mother Box of the Apocalypse Super Technology Terminal product, the program that runs quietly inside suddenly stagnates. Scan over. This is a being with a body of more than 2 meters tall, with exoskeleton and muscles forming a body surface defense, and wearing a Kryptonian Hope battle suit. And when scanning deep inside, it can be seen that the genes of the Kryptonian race, which can be regarded as superior in the entire universe, are moving towards various extreme and outrageous mutations and evolutions. The genes and cells are miraculously arriving at the wrong but correct path, and are heading towards the end of eternal life and strength every moment. Metamorphosis, and the unlimited potential of genes breaking through the bottom line supports going further. Energy, ability, traits, life. No bottom line, no rules, no stereotypes, no upper limit. What kind of Kryptonian genetic mutation extreme creation is this? In particular, this monster was grinning ferociously at him, looking like he was trying to open his mouth to swallow him, and suddenly spoke in the language of the Earth. The operating program of the Mother Box was a bit stuck, and the next moment, the external call signal was suspended. The ancient Rubik's Cube was playing with the extremely hard Mother Box. Under the eyes of jumping red flames, the Mother Box did not respond to this, and remained motionless as if it were an ordinary metal box. Yi Meng still knew about this stuff. Mother Box. As the top technological creation of the new Protoss and the Fourth World, it is considered a very high-end item in the entire DC universe. It is not only a computer, but also an artificial intelligence and strategic weapon, which can open the sonic channel to the Apocalypse, the Fourth World. Even a single Mother Box can resurrect life by reorganizing molecules. When the 3 Mother Boxes are Trinity, it can reshape the entire planetary civilization into the territory dominated by the Mother Box owner. Therefore, the old gods, Amazons, sea people, and ancient humans fearfully hid the 3 legacy Mother Boxes in different places. But now, the ancient destroying Day Yimeng is trying to apply for an online call with the Apocalypse of the Fourth World through the Mother Box. Best of all, it would be great if the Apocalypse forces could lead the fleet forces to descend on Earth again. Perhaps in the eyes of the old gods, this was an extremely frightening and crazy move, but Yimeng wanted to invite the Apocalypse forces from the bottom of his heart. Because he is the ancient destruction day. It is different from being the incarnation of artificial intelligence in the dream of the Marvel Universe, which is lurking, cautious, secretly manipulating, behind the scenes, doing everything calmly and predicting through a lot of calculations in advance. As the day of destruction in ancient times, even in the presence of human reason, Yi Meng's style and actions are still belligerent, impulsive, violent, arbitrary, and lawless. This may be the nature of the ancient Doomsday, or perhaps it is also the wanton indulgence of Yi Meng's heart. As an artificial intelligence, trying to control everything, it will be cautious, calm and rational in every step. Understandable. As the real self, you need to worry about your loved ones, and about the lurking villains in the real world. Understandable. But in the current DC Universe Dreamland, it is still the ancient day of destruction. Yimeng has no worries other than her own loss of control. Apocalypse is indeed very strong and terrifying, and dominates the world in the DC Universe. So, welcome to Earth. Immediately, either you kill me, or I kill you. A real man, let's have a real fight. At least open a sonic boom channel, he can go to Tianxixing to provide door-to-door service. The bone spur monster grinned and kept playing with the mother box in his hand. The destructive red light in his eyes became stronger and stronger, and the aura on his body was like a golden red lightning that ravaged the hall of the temple. In his hands, the inner core of the mother box trembled. Originally trying to call out the forces of apocalypse, it sent an encrypted message to outer space instead. There is no hope in this world. Don't answer, don't approach. ... This mother box feels really good, very moist. The ancient ruin Ri Yimeng's wide gray and white bone spur palm, the 5 fingers kept playing back and forth, and he liked the mother box more and more. After all, he could bear his own grasp without a force field. See mother box, nothing happens. Yimeng suddenly stretched out a bone finger of her right hand, and the bone armor hit the mother box, and there was a clear and loud sound, causing the dust on it to fall completely. At the same time, Yimeng's brow bone glowed with a little yellow light. Along the tall and terrifying monster's body, a ray of virtual red static electricity was transmitted, and passed along the fingertips to the mother box. The virtual red static electricity tries to penetrate into the surface layer of the mother box and hack into the internal system. This Kryptonian creation, the stock of cosmic knowledge that comes with the mother box, can't understand this scene. While recovering and shaking, it no longer pretends to be dead, and suddenly emits wisps of powerful silver current, which resists Yimeng's virtual red static electricity. Pity. The eyes of Yimeng, the ancient ruined day, flickered with red light. He only used the projection power of the incarnation of Marvel's dream, and he couldn't even achieve 1/10 of the phantom vision. It was too reluctant to try to hack into the mother box system. Certainly, can't do it now. It does not mean that it will not be possible in the future. After all, there is still enough potential for exploration and growth in the dreamland of the Marvel Universe. The ancient ruined day Yimeng decided that it would be good to carry this mother box with her, even if it is used as a handball or Rubik's Cube for daily play. In addition, although it is now impossible to hack into the internal system of the mother box, the message that the mother box is trying to spread is different. Yimeng, the ancient ruined day, grinned, and moved her virtual mind slightly, making slight changes to the external message of the mother box and continuing to spread it freely. Well, it really only changed a little bit. Just changed. This planet is extremely dangerous, please don't get close. 2. This planet is rich in resources and rich in natives, received it quickly. ... At this time, outside the Earth, somewhere in the distant outer space, a silver alien warship sails alone in a dark universe. At this time, in the cockpit of the alien warship, a tall being more than 2 meters tall, with 2 horns on the top of the head, and wearing silver armor sat on the seat, with a huge metal battle axe lying flat on his knees. There are still 100,000 worlds to go. When the civilization of 100,000 planets is conquered and dedicated to the Supreme King, you will forgive me, a traitor. The tall being with 2 ferocious horns on the top of his head whispered hoarsely, his gleaming gray eyes revealed firmness, his silver armor trembled as if he could breathe, and a powerful and tyrannical aura lingered and swept out. Behind it stood hundreds of demon-like monsters, each with a height of 2 meters and strange wings. At this time, the control platform in the cockpit made beeping sounds, and the green light lit up, indicating that it had captured a message from the Apocalypse channel. Apocalypse outside the channel. It can't be that kind of item. Steppenwolf shook his body, subconsciously stood up from the chair, so that the large metal axe lying flat on his lap fell to the cabin floor and made a dull sound. Immediately, a demon-like subordinate flew forward, operating the control platform to confirm the source and content of the message. It's really a mother box. The Steppenwolf was taken aback, and then full of puzzlement. The mother box is a very important top-notch strategic weapon of Apocalypse, and it cannot be easily left outside Apocalypse. And many more. The Steppenwolf's cowbell-like eyes suddenly widened. It had heard about something tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, there were indeed 3 mother boxes, which were left on a certain planet, and because they lost their coordinates, they could not go there again. It can't really be the civilization of that planet. The Steppenwolf was so excited that his entire body, including the scale armor and silver armor, trembled. Even if it is still uncertain, as long as there is a possibility, it is far more important than anything else, and the priority is beyond doubt. The value of that one planetary civilization may be able to offset 100,000 worlds, or even overflow. It's just that it made Steppenwolf feel a little strange. Now that the Mother Box has been revived and is spreading support messages, why not just open the Boom channel and send yourself there? Maybe the Mother Box doesn't have enough energy. Steppenwolf made a decision immediately, and lifted the giant axe with one hand. With golden lightning surging from his body, he issued a calm and vigorous password, changed the direction of navigation immediately, and rushed to the planet where the Mother Box sent out the support positioning at full speed. Buzz. With one order, the entire battleship was like an exploded hornet's nest, and all the demon-like subordinates acted quickly. Earth, Paradise Island. Inside the temple, the ancient ruined Riemang isolated and shielded the Mother Box's external messages, kept turning it with his big hand, squatted down slightly with his body, and flew up from the spot like a rocket in the next instant. Boom! The entire temple building shook violently, and waves of rubble and dust rushed out. When Queen Hippolyta and General Antiope led the Amazon army to the temple on the edge of the cliff, it can be seen that the bone spur monster rushed out of the dome of the temple, continued to break through the sound barrier and the shield of Zeus' divine power, and disappeared in the sky of Paradise Island, the end of the blue sky. In the blink of an eye, the trace and figure of the other party's existence were lost, and only a messy and cracked ancient temple represented that he had come. The Mother Box that my family has guarded for tens of thousands of years has been taken away by him. Antiope sighed. He is too powerful, stronger than many old gods I have ever seen, and it is normal that we cannot stop it. Queen Hippolyta was also disappointed, and quickly said calmly and forcefully, "Let's issue an early warning to the outside of Paradise Island." She looked at the sea beyond the cliff, her gaze seemed to reach the far shore. "Notice, my daughter. Call out." Just for a moment, the ancient destroying Day Yaimeng flew from Paradise Island, through the atmosphere, to the silent space outside the Earth. Doomsday itself does not need oxygen, let alone breathing. Yaimeng's breathing before was just a habit of human beings. While playing with the Mother Box, Yimeng looked down at the entire blue earth, the red light in her eyes became stronger and stronger, and the phantom of the jewel between her eyebrows was about to dim. If you don't find an opponent who can properly vent your desire for destruction, then there is not much time left in this DC Universe dream. Yimeng still wanted to persevere. He realized that there is a rational time for Doomsday, and the longer he persisted, the more positive feedback he would have on the real world itself. Dreams and reality have always been closely related. Of course, once it gets out of control again, it can only find a way to find the anchor point of the dream and switch to the Marvel dream. Anyway, DC and Marvel jump back and forth, as long as they don't wake up, it's another balance. To Yimeng's regret, there are too few opponents or even sandbags on DC Earth. Most of the old gods, including Zeus, died, and the remaining one or two were also hidden. Poseidon, the sea god, died before he could even make a fuss. In later generations, many famous DC Universe superheroes or villains did not grow up. Lonely, irritable, destroy it, or destroy the Earth, maybe some hidden wizards and old gods can jump out. The irritable ancient Ruinian Yimeng turned around and looked out at the vast starry sky of the universe. By the way, at this time, I don't know if the alien family exclusive to the DC Universe exists. Yimeng, the ancient destroyer, suddenly had a thought, played with the Mother Box, and suddenly flew towards the outer space beyond the Earth. Did not fly out of the solar system. Yimeng's red eyes danced silently, and his bony body in battle clothes turned into a stream of light, which soon approached a fiery red planet. One of the 8 planets in the solar system, Mars. Yimeng flew directly into the interior of Mars, overlooking the red sand dunes and gravel-covered desert surface from a high altitude, and the cold dust storm blowing in the air. Yimeng remembers that in the future Justice League of the DC Universe, the hometown of an alien superhero comes from Mars. So, here on Mars there is a whole colony of that alien hero. It's just that in the setting of the DC Universe, the powerful alien group is like Krypton, all infected with a special plague and extinct, leaving only one person living on the Earth. That man, who was one of the top fighters of the Justice League later, was comparable to Superman, and was praised by Batman as a composite of himself and Superman. I just don't know, in the current setting of the dreamland of the DC universe, whether that powerful alien group has become extinct at this point in time. The ancient destroyer daydreamed of arriving here, suddenly accelerated, smashed through the dust storm, and flew directly towards the back of Mars. The back of Mars. A bustling and spectacular alien colorful city is located here, with many large and small spaceships floating above it, and many white, golden, or even green humanoid alien creatures can be seen inside the city. They also have different shapes, some are like a ball of slime, some are like a ball of slugs, some are as strong as a man-bear, or they fly or walk on two limbs. There are no telephones and networks here, and the entire large and developed alien group is held together by the unique public telepathic ability. Among them, some groups with green body surface have the most powerful telepathy and comprehensive ability. At this time, Martian civilization. Gore, Greg City, outskirts. Call. A dust storm rose, and a small hovering airship stopped in front of a pyramid fort-shaped residence. The airship was closed, and a green adult Martian nearly 2 meters tall and similar in shape to a human was pierced through the self-suspending airship portal with a tall green and strong body, and soon returned to reality. Suddenly, a sweet and childish thought came directly from the house to his brain. Dad, are you back? I sensed you. Yes, I'm back. The Martian hunter Ron Rong smiled, replied with his mind, and entered the interior of the triangular castle in a blur. On Mars, in a triangular fort building of the local civilization. Martian manhunter Ron Juns passed through the portal of his house and entered the main hall, where he could see his wife in the form of a green humanoid society in the open kitchen. At the same time, a little green guy between ghost and slime form floated past. Hello, little Wawa. Ron Rong smiled slightly, hugged his beloved daughter Cam who flew forward, and then asked his wife, how is work, Marianne? Marianne blinked her red eyes and replied with a smile, I just came back too, most of the lunch was cooked by your daughter Cam. Yeah, then I'm going to sit down and taste it. Ron sat down with a smile. A family of 3 started lunch, and the peaceful and warm atmosphere was strong. Then how are you today, Dad? Little Cam's red eyes flashed, and he said in a childish voice full of admiration, those villains must know how to take a detour when they meet the strongest hunter in the city. Probably the hungriest hunter, Marianne teased. Ron N., the Martian manhunter, was wolfing down the plate. Hearing what his wife and daughter said, he couldn't help but smile. If only such peaceful days could last forever. Recently, there have been several incidents of self-immolation of the clan members, causing panic in the whole city of Mars Gore. Martian manhunter Ron N. was about to say something, but at this moment, his expression changed, and the spoon in his hand fell directly onto the plate. In the city, what happened? Marianne and little Cam's telepathy also sensed the uneasiness and fear of many people in the city. At this moment, Martian manhunter Ron N. obviously knew more spiritual information. The owner of the competitive arena who had business dealings directly sent a telepathic call to him for help. And other hunter colleagues in the city also sent out their thoughts to him for emergency support. After all, he is recognized as the strongest hunter, known as the Martian Manhunter. The Martian Manhunter felt a lot of fear, and he seemed to be able to faintly see, in his mind that a huge bone spur monster fell from the sky and landed on the underground arena in the city. It's like a real disaster befalling Mars. You guys stay at home. Don't go anywhere, wait for me to come back. Martian hunter Ron N. explained, quickly flew up from the chair, and rushed towards the outside of the Triangle Fort building. Mars Gore, Greg City, underground arena. The large arena was 100 meters long and wide. Thousands of Martians were accommodated in the auditorium. Most of them were white and golden-skinned, and they looked like slimes. At this time, the Martians in the auditorium all opened their eyes wide in astonishment, looking at the alien invaders who fell from the sky and landed in the center of the arena, obviously not belonging to the Martian civilization. It was a bone spur monster more than 2 meters tall, wearing a black standard battle suit, standing there, playing with a metal box, waiting quietly for something. The 2 Martian contestants with white skin and strong stature were still standing in the arena on the left and right sides, and they were also obviously stunned for a moment. After communicating with each other through telepathy, they rushed forward at the same time at the same moment, one punched like lightning, and the other kicked in the air, hitting the body of the bone spur monster respectively. Do not. Bye-bye's punches and kicks stopped 1 meter away from the bone spur monster, and his body seemed to be stuck in the air. The faces of the two white-skinned Martian contestants were ferociously distorted, and they quickly switched body shapes, struggling like a mass of liquid, but they were still immobilized by the invisible force field. ZZ. The bone spur monster existed without any movement. In the invisible force field outside the body surface, tiny violent lightning burst out, and the violent lightning instantly penetrated the liquid body. The next moment, there was a bang. The bodies of the two white-skinned Martians exploded, turning into real liquid and splashing all over the place. The huge arena fell silent for a moment. Then, all the Martians in the auditorium fled out in panic. Too weak. A red glow appeared in the bone spur monster's eyes, and he looked up at the sky. Streamers of green human figures flashed from the sky and rushed towards the current arena. Under the super dynamic vision, it could be clearly seen that they were Martians wearing special battle suits. The hunters are coming, someone yelled excitedly. In the next moment, countless sounds of breaking wind and green light and shadow descended on the arena. A series of tall and vigorous green figures rushed towards the bony spur monster playing with the box, and unexpectedly broke through the invisible force field at the same time, and the attacks landed on the monster's body one after another. Boom! As if several missiles were dropped from the gladiatorial arena, powerful shock waves and storms centered on the bone spur monster, and swept outward layer by layer. The arena was the first to crack and shatter unbearably. The dust wave stopped. There were more than a dozen green-skinned Martians of different genders on the field. They stood beside the bone spur monster's body, maintaining a posture of boxing or kicking, and respectively pressed against the monster's head, neck, upper body, and limbs. Superior. As a hunter of the Martian clan who lives by fighting, his speed of action and coordination of attacks at the same time are perfect. The full attack of every hunter is enough to blow down a triangular fortress. But now, no one could laugh, and every hunter's green face was pale and astonished. Even the ground of the arena was shattered and collapsed, but the bone spur monster still stood on the spot, its body suspended and standing in the low sky, and the box it was playing with was spinning in its hands. Facing the siege of hunters, I felt the long-lost pain. The bone spur monster grinned, feeling his muscles loosen. Yaimong, the ancient day of destruction, smiled with joy from the bottom of her heart. The Martian Manhunter, one of the future Justice League superheroes, and the people in the hometown of Mars are still there, not extinct. Never had such a wonderful start. Bang! The mother box was randomly thrown on the side arena. Yaimong, the ancient day of destruction, finally moved. He opened his big hand, grabbed a hunter's body casually, and threw it forward. Boom! The air burst, and the hunter's figure flew out indistinctly, smashing through one side of the wall of the auditorium in the arena at the rear, and continued to throw it to the outer urban area at an unabated speed. Boom! Another hunter who had previously attacked Yaimong's head was hit by a bony spur fist from the bottom up. The green body was obviously distorted and deformed, and it was thrown towards the height of 1,000 meters in the arena. Tread. Yaimong, the ancient destroyer, took a violent step, and the energy absorbed and converted and stored in his body turned into a ball of lightning and exploded, sending a dozen and more green-skinned hunters who rushed to the scene flying out. The arena was completely shattered, and the surrounding walls collapsed with a bang. Superior. On Mars, dozens of green-skinned hunters who rushed to the scene roared, and flew towards the bone spur monster with disaster and destruction in every gesture. The battle is imminent. Only 3 minutes late. When Martian Manhunter Ron N rushed to the sky above the original site of the arena and looked down, the scene he saw was destined to be unforgettable for him forever. I see. The underground arena, including the area a few kilometers away, was turned into ruins, and even an abyss hole was sunk down from the whole Earth. War situation. The storm raged, and the waves swept across. More than 100, almost all the green-skinned hunter colleagues in the city arrived here to join the battle, and there was only one target for the enemy's siege. So looking down, green figures are densely packed and intertwined indistinctly, surrounding a bone spur monster in black. Even Ron N, the Martian hunter, has only seen 10 hunters acting together at most during his career. But what made Martian Manhunter feel even more unbelievable was that hundreds of green-skinned hunters were in a stalemate and fighting fiercely. Facing only one foreign invader, green-skinned figures flew out backwards, throwing them into the abyss or beyond. City. More and more hunters are getting damaged and losing their ability to fight, but the besieging bone spur monsters have no energy to exhaust themselves, forming natural dust storms and thunder disasters wherever they pass. This is a catastrophe, and it is also the day of doom. Mars. The sky is burning and the earth is trembling. On the battlefield at the original site of the competitive arena, hundreds of elite hunters fell into a bitter fight just because of the arrival of a bone spur monster. The scene is better than the end of civilization. Stop. Seeing another hunter's body flying out like mud, the Martian hunter who rushed to the scene couldn't bear it any longer. With a low growl, he swooped down at an extremely fast speed, and punched the bone spur monster in the center of the battle storm. Boom! The air was turbulent, and the strong wind exploded. The bone spur monster immediately fell from the sky, and after falling 10 meters, it stopped suddenly on its tightly wrapped body in black. The bone spur monster stood high above the abyss of the battlefield, raised a pair of eyes that danced and destroyed the red flames, and looked up at the new hunter who joined the battlefield. His face was expressionless like a white bone mask, but the corners of his mouth were already twisted. A little grinning. No anger, no hate, but a raw pleasure and excitement. At this moment, the Martian manhunter feels as if he is being stared into by a truly mysterious and terrifying abyss, filled with terror. Of course, this is also because the surrounding hunters are all afraid, making the field of telepathy here a desperate abyss hell. After all, it's not that the hunters are too weak, but that this bone spur monster is too powerful, and its physical strength and energy seem to be endless. It can't go on like this. Ron N., the Martian hunter, connected telepathically with the dozens of hunters who still had combat strength on the field, and said calmly, "Now, I will take over the command of the hunter team, and we will definitely be able to repel this invader." Quote. "Okay, it's up to you to command. Martian manhunter, I listen to you. Let's go together." On the field, the hunters who still had fighting strength responded telepathically, and their fear was transformed into fighting spirit and courage. Bang! The bony spur monster exists with its own storm and soars into the sky, and it directly returns a punch. Not to be outdone, Martian manhunter Ron N stepped down hard, his green leather right foot turned into a streamer, meeting the bony fist of the monster. Although it was fist to foot, the bone spur was obviously bigger than the fist. The fist and kick under the super strength and physique collided, causing the air pressure in the surrounding Martian area to be distorted and disordered. Ron N., the Martian manhunter, only felt a force several times greater than his own. With a pain in his right foot, he subconsciously changed the shape of his right leg and softened it, releasing most of the force. The one that was downwind retreated more than 10 meters towards the sky above before stopping again. But compared to the other hunters who were hard to fight against under the blow of the bone spur monster, this is already a very good level. Sure enough, here on Mars, he is the strongest. Yaimong, the ancient ruined day, just warmed up, feeling happy in her heart, and continued to fly towards the Martian hunter Ron N. Yaimong felt that this time, she might be able to truly enjoy herself after Krypton, and properly entertain her desire for destruction. It's not out of control, it's manageable. In any case, he was always the ancient Doomsday, born for battle. Even if the issue of out of control is considered, it is impossible to be low-key and lurking in control behind the scenes like artificial intelligence. Doomsday is Doomsday, because without fear, no matter how rational and restrained one is, one will never be like a human being. Yi Meng clearly recognized this. From the initial forced anti-invasion control, to the current immersion into the ancient day of destruction, it is easier to control the power, and the longer the time of being rational. This change is somewhat similar to Dr. Hulk Banner in the Marvel Dreamland. From the initial resistance, controllability, and substitution, until the two different personalities merge into one. Is it good or bad? The dream of the ancient ruined day is unknown, so continue to follow your heart and seek a hearty battle. Although the Martian hunter had expected it a long time ago, he was still shocked by the power of the bone spur monster, which was several times higher than himself as the strongest hunter. Then, when he saw the existence of the bone spur monster flying towards him again, the Martian hunter crossed his hands to defend, and at the same time controlled all the hunters on the field with telepathy. The moment Martian manhunter snorted in pain and was sent flying again. Hundreds of fiery red lights lit up from the surroundings one after another, and then turned into bundles of thermal sight lines, interweaving in the air to form a net, right in the middle of the bone spur monster above the center of the abyss. Heat sight, Yaimong, the ancient ruined day, had nowhere to hide, so he didn't hide at all, and was hardwired by the body covered in black battle clothes. A large amount of heat was absorbed into the body of the bone spur, and the body was like an energy conversion furnace, glowing with scorching electric light. And the next moment, the icy hurricane whizzed up from all directions, as if icy water was poured on the hot red iron, freezing the body surface of the bone spur monster until it formed a thick and large ice sculpture. Did you make it? The Martian manhunter stabilized his body in the air, and looked forward solemnly. Other hunters were also suspended in the surrounding air, looking at the floating ice sculptures panting. Under their suspicious gaze, the ice sculpture remained in the air, never falling, and the energy inside was still surging. Click! The frost shattered and melted before cracks opened, and the powerful and scorching destructive energy lightning exploded outward. The bony spur monster within raised its head and let out a low growl, so much that the overflowing energy burst out from the eyes and mouth. Call out. This day, the alien residents of the entire Martian civilization can look up and see that 3 beams of light turn into a beam of light rising from the sky, and the scorching and violent red light breaks through the atmosphere, as if heralding the destruction of the Martian civilization. Outskirts. Marianne and little Cam, the wife and daughter of Martian manhunter Ron, stood in front of the window of the Triangle Fort building, branding this scene of supreme power in their eyes and mind. War situation. Violent ball lightning swept through. The original abyss of the arena once again doubled in size, and many hunters fell to the ground in disorder. It was difficult to maintain the social state of fighting, and one by one they lost their combat power and fell to the ground. Even if they can constantly switch body shapes, change density, and blur, and those without weaknesses can continue to recover from broken limbs. Facing this existence that is like a large mobile energy conversion field, whose defense is so strong that it is difficult to break through, but also self-healing, as if it has infinite physical strength and energy. There is no hope of victory at all. Fear and despair once again breed in the hunter's heart. Since energy and physical strikes are ineffective. Mind, let's concentrate and attack with mind impact. The Martian manhunter did not give up, flew up from the ground of the abyss, and continued to command telepathically. The ability that their family is best at is neither super strength, super physique, nor heat vision, super senses, nor deformation and regeneration. But the heart, the power of spiritual thinking is the most powerful advantage and characteristic of their family. Almost at the moment when the Martian manhunter issued an attack command. Immediately, dozens of invisible and powerful spiritual surges, while ignoring the Kryptonian Superman suit and the defense of the Man of Steel, submerged into the brain of the bone spur monster. The tall body of Yaimong, the ancient destroyer, froze, and then fell straight towards the abyss. Boom! The bone spur monster fell straight into the 1,000-meter abyss of the Martian battlefield without making any sound, and its energy and life breath disappeared. Hoo-hoo! Ron N., the Martian hunter, and dozens of other hunters of the same clan supported each other, and they all fell from the air on the edge of the abyss exhaustedly, looking down. No one spoke on the field, and there was no telepathy, only the sound of many rapid breathing. After 10 seconds passed, there was still no movement. It's over, a hunter whispered in relief, slumped on the ground, limp like a ball of slime. Yeah, I thought I was dead. It was horrible, I will never forget this battle in my life. Then what is it? Is there really such a strong creature in the outer universe? The hunters were all weak and tired, communicating telepathically with lingering fear. Ron N., the Martian manhunter, also heaved a sigh of relief, feeling a wave of weakness in his heart as well. Such a result is actually a miserable victory. The strongest ability of their family is indeed spiritual thinking, but it is very dangerous to directly use spiritual attacks. Once their spiritual thinking is backlashed, they will turn back into a pool of primitive Martian creatures at least, or even die directly. This is the trump card of their clan, and it is also the last means of attack. Once they fail, they will be completely finished. Fortunately, the gray and white bone spur monster existed, so it couldn't resist the blow. That's right, this is a spiritual attack launched by dozens of hunters. Wouldn't it be invincible if he had such terrifying physical defense and energy absorption, and also had an equally terrifying and powerful spiritual defense ability? Whether it is invincible is not clear. At the very least, their Martian family will definitely not be able to solve this kind of existence. This universe is still orderly, at least it will not really create such an ultimate monster. The Martian hunter thought of this, and watched several hunters fly into the abyss, trying to get the body of the bone spur monster out. But the next moment, boom, 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 the hunters who flew into the abyss shot back like green human-shaped balls, smashing the abyss in the ground, and limp on the ground like a puddle of mud again. Above the abyss, the hunters froze in relief, looking down at the bottom of the abyss in disbelief, their bodies and minds trembling in unison. This is impossible, how could he be alive? Martian hunter's face was also full of sluggishness, looking down at a pair of blazing red pupils rekindled from the bottom of the dark abyss. Call. The dust storm swayed away. The bone spur monster in black flew up again, flew out from the bottom of the abyss, stopped at a height of 100 meters, and looked down at the hunters on the Martian battlefield. Just now, Yaimong, the ancient destroyer, thought he was dead. The minds of dozens of Martian hunters were layered on top of each other, ignoring the Kryptonian battlesuit and Doomsday's unique steel body, and inserted into the brains thinking and will like a saber. The superimposed mental power impact at that moment, in terms of attack strength alone, once surpassed the Dragon Girl's Phoenix power. Sustaining the superimposed soul-thinking saber, piercing the outer layer of will to destroy, directly touching the phantom of the soul gem, even the broken light of the soul gem is dim, almost entering the inner consciousness. At that moment, Yi Meng felt that, as the ancient Doomsday, he felt the breath of death for the first time. Still, almost is almost. The impact of spiritual thinking penetrates through the will to destroy, and has already weakened most of its power, and even encountered the supreme gem of the mind. Although it was just a projection of ability, it still bought a little time. And at the moment when Yaimong, the ancient ruined day, was on the verge of death but did not die, the extreme Kryptonian gene ushered in the evolution again, repairing the spiritual gap broken by the psychic surge, and the psychic defense was more tenacious than ever. Yaimong, the ancient ruined day, felt that if there was another psychic attack just now, it would be much easier for him to deal with it than the last time. Come to fight, and the spiritual defense has been strengthened instead. Is this a surprise? Yi Meng felt that her true spiritual will had also received some feedback on defense and immunity. Sure enough, Mars is on the right track this time. Not only are there so many high-quality sandbags with super physiques, self-healing forms, and rebirth of severed limbs, but they also obtained unexpected harvests from dream exploration. These Martians are really more and more charming. Certainly, Yaimong, the ancient ruined day, would never admit that he was a pervert, at most he was just a monster. Compared with the joy and harvest of the ancient ruined day dream. Now, the local hunters of the Martian civilization are collapsed and desperate. Many hunters have lost their fighting spirit and collapsed on the ground. No matter how the Martian hunter Ron calls, they are indifferent. How can I fight this? There is not even a slight possibility of victory. Give up, destroy. Don't give up. Keep going, fight until the last moment. Ron N, the Martian hunter, gritted his teeth. Although he felt the same fear in his heart, but thinking that his wife and daughter needed his shelter and waiting for his return, he reinvigorated and led the remaining hunters with fighting spirit to continue to rush forward. A great war broke out again from the sky and the earth. 5 minutes later, hundreds of hunters fell all over the abyss of the battlefield, and none of them could maintain their social form. They were all limp and motionless on the ground like green humanoid slimes. No, there is one more person. Failed, all fell down. Ron N, the Martian hunter, was lying on the bottom of the abyss, unconscious, all the telepathy around him was disconnected, and all the hunters on the scene lost their combat power. Do you regret it? There's no regrets left. What he can do is to abide by his self-principle and fight to the last moment. The Martian manhunter Ron N's eyes were also blurred. Seeing the bony spur monster looming in front of him at a low altitude, he continued to climb up with his last strength. At this time, the bone spur monster's eyes also fell on him. Playing with the metal box he picked up again with his left hand, the tall and strong burning body flew forward, and his right hand pinched the green head down and lifted it up. Martian manhunter Ron's body naturally hung down, without even a trace of strength to resist. His eyes were closed, and at the last moment when he was about to faint, a hoarse and low voice came from ahead with joy. You are not bad. That invincible bone spur monster exists, talking. The Martian manhunter couldn't think, and passed out completely. Yaimong, the ancient day of destruction, stared at Martian manhunter, raised a ferocious arc at the corner of his mouth, and threw the opponent's body out casually, flying hundreds of meters away and hitting the abyss wall. Then, Yi Meng flew towards the sky above the abyss, broke through the sound barrier, rushed out of the atmosphere of Mars in an instant, and looked down. I will come again, don't let me down. This trip to Mars, the ancient destroyer Yaimong was very satisfied. As for destroying Martian civilization, why would he do that? He has reason, and the bottom line. If the Martian civilization is such a powerful force, who will lend it to him if it is destroyed? Yi Meng also wished that the Martian clan could exist for a longer time. It wouldn't be fun if they just went extinct like this. Satisfied is satisfied. The energy of the projection of the Mind Stone is about to run out, and the time to switch to the Marvel Dreamland is coming. I just don't know if the previous Marvel Dream Anchor can be used. The ancient destroyer Yaimong flew back towards the Earth while thinking about things. But at this moment, Yi Meng suddenly felt sideways, and saw a silver alien warship emerging from the depths of the vast outer space, also flying towards the Earth at a high speed. Could it be? Yi Meng lowered her head and glanced at the mother box she was playing with in her big hand. Ah well, don't come early, don't come late, but come when the desire to fight is satisfied. Yaimong, the ancient destroyer, shook her head, but still took the mother box and flew towards the silver alien warship. After dinner, it's okay to add dessert. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.